In the end, humanity won. We defeated all 6 of the great demon gods who were plotting to destroy the world. Even the god of the sea has fallen, though he is now dead. But most of the land was still swallowed by the sea of death he created. Thinking of that, Sehun couldn't help but scoff. I fought so hard to survive only to end up dying in this sea. Just then a man's voice came from behind him. Hey, are you really going to stand here and be dramatic all by yourself? Seo-ha walked up to Sehun, his brow furrowing slightly as he saw his disheveled state. Anyone watching would think you were carrying the whole world on your shoulders. Mad Dog Seo-yun-ha. Hearing this, Lewis turned to mock him. The guy who was just lying on the ground playing dead now wants to act like a hero berserker dog Louis Vallon. Meanwhile, Amir clutched his head and whined. My God, I told you before, didn't I? The captain's just trying to hog the glory after taking command of the Corps. Ice Dog, Amir born a month later. Amidst the silence as the men took turns criticizing him, Sehun coldly ordered cut the crap. You lot would have been pushing up daisies long ago if it weren't for the gear I made for you. The last Blacksmith. Lee Sehun. As soon as the words were out, Seo-yun-ha flew into a rage. What did you say? Lewis on the side couldn't help but remark, this guy really has a nasty way of talking. Amir didn't forget to turn and chime in, Captain, that was a little harsh, you know. Immediately after he let out a curse and the atmosphere suddenly grew heavy as if suffocated. Shut the hell up. If you little brats don't like using it, then give all the gear back to me. In that moment, only one thought existed in Sehun's mind. The 3 men standing before me are the 3 mad dogs. They weren't on humanity's side, nor did they belong to those damn demons. They act only as they please, always putting their own interests first. They're the type to stand on the sidelines of a war just to profit from it. Utterly selfish bastards to the very core. But still they managed to survive until this very moment, and in the end they were the ones who fought the hardest. Thinking this, Sehun vaguely wondered, if they had acted sooner, would the outcome have been even a little better? Once again his gaze was drawn to the sun at the edge of the sea. Sehun casually sat down on the ground, then glanced behind him. Is anyone else still standing? Hearing this, Seo-yun-ha clutched his stomach and collapsed. He let out a dry sound. I'm at my limit. All of my internal organs are ruptured. Lewis looked up into the empty space. He spoke slowly. Things aren't any better over here. It seems to be a cursed wound. The bleeding just won't stop. But over here, Amir was groaning incessantly. My heart's been pierced. I don't think I'm gonna make it either. Seeing this, Sehun sighed helplessly. See? You all should have worked together from the start. Even as they were dying, he continued to scold them coldly. Instead of just selfishly looking out for yourselves, you 3 damn dogs. Suddenly, a loud thud drew Sehun's attention. He saw that Seo-yun-ha, Louis, and Amir had all collapsed. At that sight, he stood up calmly, sighing softly, causing trouble right up to the very end. After that, Sehun walked over step by step. He gently took the hammer and lifted the object into the air, his eyes fixed on the piece of metal below. After a long moment, he carefully stuck the daggers into the ground beside Amir's body. Sehun's voice was hoarse with anger. Show a little respect for your equipment. It's all banged up like this, how is anyone supposed to use it anymore? He thought to himself. At least this stuff can serve as their gravestones. When he was done, Sehun looked up at the endless sky. He stood silently amidst the howling sea wind, mocking himself. So, is it my turn now? Sehun slowly raised his blood-caked, cracked hand, his gaze chillingly calm. This will be the last time I do this. Immediately, he slammed his palm into the center of his chest. Space trembled slightly. Lines of glowing text floated in front of Sehun as an emotionless voice echoed in his head. Proceeding with link extraction from the subject. Lee Sehun. Link level with creator Lee Sehun has reached a negative level. A crystal of light appeared in his hand, a pale blue glow emanating from around the invisible ore. The system coldly explained unique skill link Blacksmith. Can obtain a special ore from a target with a connection. The ore's effect depends on the relationship with and potential of the subject. Sehun stared at the crystal, a thought rising in his mind. However, if I use it on myself, what's created is even worse than a common piece of iron ore. Colorless ore. A linked ore extracted from Lee Sehun. It is completely empty. If only I could have awakened this ability a little sooner. He looked at the faint ore in his hand, his nails digging into his palm, his voice a whispered plea to the darkness. If you truly contain nothing, then swallow the regret that's tormenting me. Right after that, Sehun suddenly raised the hammer in his hand. A rumbling sound echoed from the distance. He looked up at the churning black sea. That echo was the sound of the Sea of Death. Or is it the sound I've been hearing all this time? But there's one thing I'm sure of. Whenever this sound rings in my ear, in that instant Sehun frantically slammed the hammer down onto the object. A bold thought formed in his mind. A masterpiece that surpasses all imagination will always be born at the very end. As the hammer struck a pillar of light, suddenly shot straight up into the sky. He raised the hammer high, his voice low and determined, until the very end. It still didn't produce any special ability, huh? After speaking, Sehun couldn't help but mock himself. And here I was, thinking something good might actually happen for once, even if this is my own Nexus Stone. He looked at the colorless metal in his hand and muttered to himself, "It's still so damn boring." Instead of that, "I will end this life with my own two hands right now." At that moment, Sehun's facial muscles tensed. His eyes rolled back and he burst into a distorted cackle that echoed across the Dead Sea. So insane, yet so tragic. I really am a madman. To think that the only thing he did until the very end was swing a blacksmith's hammer. As he cast aside his final sword, Sehun was lost in his own thoughts. I've finally realized the truth about the sound of waves I've been hearing ever since I awakened my magic. All this time I had been wondering what that sound meant. It turns out it was the presence of the Sea of Annihilation. His eyes closed, regret weighing on him like a boulder as his lips moved in remorse. If only I had understood that a little sooner. Or perhaps I should have tried to persuade those 3 dogs earlier. Sehun denied it. No. If I had only started forging for others even just a little bit sooner, maybe things could have turned out differently. The space around Sehun suddenly twisted, and a giant image of an ancient artifact appeared as a voice announced, "The spiritual image of the artifact has manifested. The skill Primal Regression Eidolon is being activated." Amidst a brilliant flash of light, a calm, unfamiliar voice spoke. "Well then, welcome." Sehun's eyes flew open, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his heart pounding in panic. "What? I'm not dead!" Across from him, Assistant Han was watching with a bewildered expression. "Hey, Examinee Lee Sehun. What in the world do you think you're doing over there?" Hearing that, Sehun flinched. Examinee. It's been 31 years since I last heard that word. Then the man suddenly yelled, "Why are you just spacing out like that?" Right in the middle of the entrance exam. At his words, Sehun's eyes widened. "What?" He glanced around. "The entrance exam. If this is from 31 years ago, then this is that worthless exam. Is this just a memory flashing before my eyes as I die?" A look of stunned realization dawned on his face as he recalled his final moments. Wait. The Eidolon manifestation I saw right before I died. The air around Sehun seemed to freeze as his breathing grew heavy. A regression to the starting point. Did the weapon I forged from my Nexus Stone actually cause this? Assistant Han spoke in a stern voice. "This is your final warning, Examinee Lee Sehun," he continued. "If you don't get your act together right now, I'm throwing you out." He nodded instinctively. "Yes." Sehun stared down at the hammer below him. So, it was a regression. His hand clenched in the air as if gripping an invisible hammer handle. If only I'd realized the abilities I was given and started swinging my hammer sooner. Could I have changed how everything turned out? Sehun shook his head frantically. No, that's not what's most important. His breathing slowed, his heartbeat steadied. In that moment of awakening, his entire body felt reborn as he stared intently at the palm of his hand. There's only one thing that truly matters now. I have to do it. And that is... As the thought crossed his mind, a corner of Sehun's mouth curled up. He stood tall, his eyes blazing like a newly lit forge as a deep, resonant voice echoed in his mind. I have to protect everything. A smile touched Sehun's lips once more. In this life, I'll pass this crappy exam. With that thought, he gently lifted the hammer high. His eyes gleamed as the thought continued, and meeting those 3 dogs is only the beginning. Suddenly, a small flame erupted. Inong flinched. He leaned towards the forge, his eyes shining with surprise at the examinee, who was frantically striking the piece of metal with his hammer. Inong immediately moved closer, his eyes glued to the young man's hands. Incredible. It looks slow, but the rhythm is perfect. And the resonance is so clean and pure. He carefully followed the piece of metal in Sehun's hands, marveling to himself, this is top-tier forging skill. Tier. Inong stood motionless, unable to look away. He swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the ingot that was gradually taking shape. Just what level of perfection is this? At the same time, Assistant Han's eyes were wide with disbelief. Did he really make that? Seeing this, Inong smirked. A true genius has applied. If he'd just submitted that as it is, he would have passed instantly. Just then, Sehun slammed the hammer down on the metal. The loud clang drew everyone's attention, only for them to see the metal shatter into pieces. Assistant Han stood frozen in place. Beside him, Inong stared, his eyes wide with disbelief. After a silent moment, Sehun's lips moved. Even though I still have a long way to go. Showing off a piece of trash like this, he held his hammer poised, his expression turning cold. As a blacksmith, seeing that is something I absolutely cannot accept. Assistant Han frantically yelled, "Did you just destroy the weapon right in front of the professor? Do you think blacksmithing is some kind of joke?" Sehun calmly called for the proctor. Before Inchan's bewildered eyes, he casually made his request, "I want to retake the test." The assistant yelled again, "Hey, contestant!" The professor suddenly cut him off. "Assistant Han!" Inchan crossed his arms and gave a short, decisive order, "Bring the remaining materials to him." Assistant Han couldn't help but be surprised, stammering, "What, sir?" The professor slightly raised an eyebrow, his sharp, cold gaze fixed on him. "He hasn't actually violated any rules, has he? Or would you prefer I go get them myself?" Not daring to argue, Assistant Han hastily replied, "I'll bring the materials right away." Inchan approached the forge and looked Sehun straight in the eye. His voice was deep and warm, yet full of pressure. "Young man," he reminded him sternly, "do you realize there are only 40 minutes left in the exam?" He just nodded. "Yes." Inchan stared at the broken shards. He asked curiously, "So you think shattering it was the right decision?" Hearing this, Sehun's eyes darted towards the destroyed chunks of metal. Finally, he turned back to Inchan, his gaze firm and unyielding. "I couldn't possibly submit something like that." The professor tilted his head slightly, a thoughtful look in his eyes, then slowly spoke. "All right then. Do your best." A moment later, the fire of determination once again lit up in Sehun's eyes. He took a deep breath, feeling this young but weak body. He thought to himself anxiously, with this body, "Wah!" Perfect forging is truly difficult. At this thought, Sehun furrowed his brow. Mana strength and time are all running out. In that case, the best option in this situation is... Suddenly, a loud, sizzling sound erupted from the forge. A few contestants turned in shock. "What was that sound?" one person shouted in alarm. "Is that bastard trying to cheat by pumping mana into the ignition stones?" Someone lunged forward and yelled, "Hey! What the hell are you doing? If those stones ignite, they'll explode." Hurry, meanwhile. Sehun calmly raised his hand and activated the flames. The entire room fell silent as a 5-colored flame erupted violently without exploding. Someone gasped, "Huh? No way, this crazy bastard." It was at this very moment. An invisible surge of mana suddenly rushed straight at him. Faced with the terrifying sight, a few people panicked and screamed, "Fire, bring a fire extinguisher over here. Hurry up!" Assistant Han's voice trembled as he pleaded, "Professor, please make him stop." Inchan just replied nonchalantly, "Just let him be. It's one thing for the other contestants to react like that, but even you shouldn't be." With that, he seriously gestured, "Observe the flow of the flames carefully." The assistant couldn't help but feel a bit bewildered. This is strange. Right in front of Sehun was the 5-colored demonic flame, a high-temperature flame amplified by the resonance of 5 types of ignition stones. He smirked his eyes, never leaving the flame. This requires extremely precise mana control, but it's an excellent technique that can be used even with minimal mana. A contestant stammered, not believing his eyes. "What, it's not exploding?" Another hesitated. "Wait a minute, could that be—" Someone else pointed at the ingot in the forge and shouted in amazement, "Look! The color of the ingot has changed." Witnessing that scene, Incheon quickly understood. So that's how it is. He resonated the ignition stones to increase the firepower and alter the properties of the ingot. He cast a concerned glance towards Sehun. This will shorten the time needed for forging considerably. However, with only 30 minutes left, time is still extremely tight. At this thought, Incheon silently affirmed his earlier forging was also excellent. But if that's all he has, he won't be able to finish in time. Just then, sharp metal fragments shot into the air. Seeing this, Sehun smirked, a rare gleam in his eyes. Immediately after, Sehun gripped the object with his bare hands, then slowly placed it inside the forge. He could be seen panting, his breaths coming with difficulty. He continued to hammer down hard on the piece of metal. Suddenly, Sehun's arm stopped mid-air. He gritted his teeth, sensing his mana was completely drained, and muttered, "Damn it, I'm out of mana." And my protective layer has shattered. Damn this weak body. I need to start training as soon as this exam is over. Even so, at some point, Se-hoon's palm had started to bleed. Fresh blood slowly spread across his hand. In that moment, he had only one thought: I can't waste a single second. Right after that, Se-hoon once again began hammering down furiously. He silently decided to push his body to its limit. It was at this moment that Inchun's voice rang out, 10 minutes left. 3 minutes. In the final minute, he bellowed with a force that shook the entire room. 1 minute! The moment the sound faded, Se-hoon immediately raised the sword in his hand. Inchun yelled once more, "Stop!" upon hearing that he let out a soft breath. At the same time, Se-hoon's hand hidden beneath the table tightened into a fist, as fresh blood steadily dripped from it. The system's bright screen flashed, complete. Weapon 5 colored flame sword has been completed. You have acquired the skill, Flame Artisan C. The announcements continued to echo in the air. Judgment result for the 5 colored flame swords: grade high. 5 colored flame sword. Quality grade high. Mid-high. A curved sword engraved with 5 flames. The flames compressed within the blade react to magical energy to create brilliant colors. This item reveals the potential of the smith who created it. The sword's color and properties can change slightly depending on the nature of the infused magic. Someone repeated in a trembling voice, "The weapon's grade is high," Se-hoon continued. "I'd like you to check the detailed description in the information window." It was obvious to everyone that he had passed. Assistant Han burst out in excitement, his voice nearly a shout in the celebratory atmosphere. Inchun immediately waved his hand, signaling for silence. "Quiet, you kid." The assistant instantly lowered his voice. "My apologies, sir." The scene shifts to a room. It's Professor Kim In-cheon's office. Inside, he nervously glances behind him. Se-hoon sits upright in front of the desk. He asked with an unwavering gaze this time, "Is this sword worthy of being submitted?" In-cheon was silent for a moment, then replied, "For now, yes it is." He sighed. "You still don't seem satisfied, Lee Se-hoon. I'll be direct with you." In-cheon's voice grew heavy, as if carrying the weight of an era. "This place will never be able to meet your standards." He emphasized every single word. "It's best if you withdraw your application." Inchun continued in a low tone. "Babel's reputation might be overwhelming, but the alchemy department, it hasn't produced any notable achievements for a long time." On the other side, Se-hoon remained silent, not responding. He narrowed his eyes slightly at the professor. "That's a truth I'm already well aware of. Babel's alchemy department will shut down in the next 8 years due to declining standards. In the future, the Vunkern Academy will become the world's best blacksmithing academy." After some hesitation, Inchun reluctantly made a suggestion. "Perhaps in the future, Vunkern will be the best place for you." Upon hearing this, Se-hoon immediately cut in. "You're mistaken, Professor. The best place won't be Vunkern." He pointed a finger at himself with a confident gaze. "It will be Babel, the place I'm about to enroll in." The professor was visibly startled, his eyes wavering. Inchun stared at Se-hoon, a clear mix of doubt and astonishment on his face. Inchun narrowed his eyes, his sharp gaze scrutinizing him. His voice was slow, challenging. "In that case, you'll need to become the top student of the department first. Are you confident enough for that?" Without a hint of hesitation, he replied, "Of course. At least at the student level, no one can surpass me." As soon as he finished speaking, Inchun's expression changed. He asked in a stern voice, "Do you know the procedure for selecting the department's top freshman at Babel?" Without waiting for the question to finish, Se-hoon recited the information like a machine. "They select a candidate for the top of the department through a supplementary exam between the 2 top-ranking students, and from those candidates, the one who will become the top student is determined. That is what I know. Babel Academy divides its students broadly into 3 faculties: the combat faculty Aga, the support faculty Ur, and the technology faculty Boshiba. Within each faculty, dozens of majors intertwine like roots. Becoming the top of the faculty means you've received the highest evaluation among all those countless majors and are recognized by all of Babel as a top-tier talent." Returning to the present, Inchun's tension was palpable. His arms were clenched so tightly they were trembling. Inchun turned back to look Se-hoon straight in the eye, his voice low and sincere. "I'll say this again, not as a professor but as a senior blacksmith." He continued in a dejected tone, "Even if you become the top of the department, it's difficult to expect success as a blacksmith in this place. Go to Vunkern Academy." Incheon nodded slightly as if he had made the decision for him. "That is the path for you." Sehun looked at the man before him with a rare sense of respect, thinking to himself, putting his junior's future above his own position, he really is a decent man. After a moment of silence, he once again asserted, "The environment isn't important, like I just said." His eyes lit up, his voice echoing with enthusiasm. "Babel, the place I'm about to enroll in, will soon become the best." Incheon was momentarily bewildered. The place he goes will become the best. Finally, the corners of his mouth turned up, revealing his interest. Incheon couldn't help but laugh as he extended a hand toward Sehun. That's a statement that goes far beyond mere arrogance. But for some reason, "I don't hate it." He offered his hand, his gaze sincere as he looked at him. "I look forward to working with you." Sehun didn't hesitate to grasp Incheon's hand. He squeezed it firmly, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Me too." Glimmering text immediately appeared right in front of him. A bond with the target, Kim Incheon, has been established. Bond with the creator, Lee Sehun, is currently at level 1. Extracting link from target Kim Incheon. Sehun was seen clenching his hand muscles. An object floated in the very center of his palm. A block of metal appeared with a fire smoldering inside. System description, fire-bearing iron link. Quality grade high. Low mid. A type of metal that possesses fire. It has wood-like properties and can store flames within it. Back with Sehun, he stared blankly at the burning object in his hand. Sehun turned the small metal block over in his hand. Not too bad. But is this all there is to it? He pressed his lips together as he analyzed it. Link extraction quantifies the relationship with a specific target to draw out ores that don't originally exist. Sehun stared at the metal block, his gaze hardening. The problem was the bond level was still too low, making it difficult to use it right now. He looked at the status window before him. He let out a bitter chuckle. Besides, compared to the other freshmen at Babel, his stats were pathetic. Sehun looked up and sighed helplessly. What a shame. But if this is the price for returning to the past, it's a bargain. He muttered to himself, forcing himself to calm down. That's right, no need to rush. No. A sharp glint appeared in Sehun's eyes as he thought about the future. I want more than this. It's just simple greed. There's still plenty of time to crush those bastards from the demon world. The monsters of the demon world didn't just threaten humanity, but the entire planet. The destruction of humankind by the 6 great demon gods was all part of their plan. Sehun stared into space. He thought to himself, if I want to stop them, I can't afford to be picky about the means. I can't let myself get rattled by what's to come. So first, I need to obtain a weapon or a skill related to memory. He gave a slight nod as if confirming it to himself. The first step of the plan enrolling in Babel is done. The next step is right now. A flash of light drew Sehun's attention. His eyes widened in pure astonishment as the system announced solemnly, User Lee, Sehun has reached level 1. The bond imprint skill has been added. 1 week later at Babel Academy. Babel Academy appeared in the early morning sunlight. Meanwhile, in one of the Academy's hallways, Sehun sighed in frustration. Damn it, I'm lost again. Is this the right place? He looked around the vast hallway, then stopped when he saw a familiar sign. This is it. As he stepped inside, Sehun cautiously spoke. Good morning. Someone suddenly cut in. Student Lee Sehun. After a moment of confusion, his expression turned to one of shock. Michael slowly tapped on the desk. He spoke sarcastically. You look quite relaxed, don't you? Michael raised an eyebrow, glancing towards the crowded waiting room. Can't you see that everyone is waiting? Michael Barmouth, Vice Dean of the Refinement Department. Hearing this, Incheon couldn't help but speak up. Vice Dean, the supplementary exam doesn't start for another 10 minutes. Michael immediately cut him off. This isn't an issue of time. It's about attitude. Michael's voice grew heavy. I'll have to give him a warning for this. Sehun felt a bit awkward. He sighed to himself. Not only is the Refinement Department in bad shape, but he's also at odds with his superiors. Sehun's gaze shifted to Incheon. Now I get why he recommended another student. As Sehun's eyes wandered, Han turned to glare at him, making no effort to hide his anger. His gaze fell on Sehun, scanning him from head to toe. Seeing this, Sehun froze for a moment. His arms subconsciously went limp. After a moment's hesitation, Sehun slowly spoke. It's nice to meet you. In the face of Han's disdain, he managed a strained smile. What's with this naive little punk? What kind of act is this? It's been a long time since someone treated me like this. How pathetic. This is unbelievable. Just then, a voice rang out, grabbing everyone's attention. Is everyone here? Just then, a figure appeared in the brilliant sunlight. Seeing this, Sihun and Han turned around at the same time. Over on the other side, Michael let out a breath. We were just wondering when you would arrive. Dean. At the same time, his eyes widened the moment he saw them. That person is... At the same time, his eyes widened the moment he saw her. That person is Unha. She immediately sat down, making eye contact with Sehun. She stared at him with an ice-cold gaze. Her voice was low. I apologize for being late. Unha, Dean of Babel's refinement department. The moment she saw Sehun, she couldn't help but feel a little bewildered. Why is she here? The moment he saw Unha, Sehun went still, his gaze lowering as if he were tracing a distant memory. I'd heard rumors that she used to work at Babel. The thought only deepened his confusion. I can't believe she's the Dean now. The S-Rank hero, Weapon Devourer, Unha, a transcendent being with a one-of-a-kind ability. It allows her to grow stronger by absorbing weapons. Back before I returned to the past, she was just a regular customer at my shop. A long time after that, Unha appeared looking disheveled, and her voice was soft. Her eyes crinkled as if she were smiling, but deep down they held an inscrutable guilt. I truly regret accidentally eating your weapon. Meanwhile, Sehun stood frozen in place. He didn't answer her. Silence descended. She hung her head low. Sehun's expression was one of rage. His teeth clenched so tightly that his body shook. In the end, all he could do was lower his head in helplessness. Back in the present, a sharp, concise voice called out, pulling him out of his thoughts. Hey, Sehun! Sehun snapped to attention, quickly replying, Yes, sir. Incheon spoke in a steady voice, his eyes sweeping over each of the candidates. We will now begin the exam briefing. Everyone pay attention. He emphasized each word clearly. You will have a total of 90 minutes. For this test, Incheon paused for a moment, then continued, You will have a time limit of 90 minutes. Your task is to forge a piece of equipment that is compatible with the sword from the previous test. Incheon suddenly stopped for a few seconds, creating a heavy silence. However, his voice turned colder, each word ringing out like a command. You are only permitted to use alchemy forging techniques for this creation. Incheon tilted his head slightly toward the racks, where shimmering ores were displayed. As for the materials, you are free to choose any of the ores available here. Incheon's voice lowered as his gaze swept over the two judges with respect. The finished products will be personally evaluated by Principal Unha and Vice Principal Bamut. Therefore, pour all of your heart and soul into creating something you can be proud of. Immediately after, he decisively lowered his hand, his voice ringing out like a starting bell. All right. Standing before the two, Sehun and Han Incheon shouted, The official test begins now. A moment later, Sehun mumbled under his breath, We can only use alchemy forging, huh? Sehun pursed his lips for a moment, his eyes fixed on the pile of materials. I have to create resonance with pure magic to prevent the primordial spiritual energy from going berserk. Seeing this, Han let out a faint mocking laugh. You think staring at that pile of ore is going to magically increase your mana? Sehun slowly lifted his head, his gaze turning a few degrees colder. Did I hear you right? Sehun asked curiously. Were you just aiming that sarcasm at me? The other man smirked again. Well, who else is here besides us? Just then, Incheon's cold voice rang out. Han Bamut! He called out in a sharp tone. Refrain from making comments unrelated to the exam. Hearing this, Han bowed his head slightly. I'll be more careful. Sehun was momentarily stunned. Han Bamut. What the hell? So this guy is the judge's son, Michael Bamut. Han Bamut. Thinking this, he broke into a wicked grin. No wonder the two of them look so much alike. Sehun turned to look at him with hostility. The more I think about it, the more ridiculous this whole thing seems. Seeing his reaction, Han thought to himself, It seems that guy has figured it out. He smirked. The fact that I am the noble son of the vice principal, while he's just a commoner from a lowly family with the weakest mana among all the contestants, and I born into the illustrious Bamut family famed for its alchemy, forging, possess magical power that rivals the top student of the second year. The outcome of this confrontation was decided from the very beginning, over on this side. Unha's eyes followed their every move. She smiled faintly. Lapis lazuli and aquamarine. Both of these are materials that contain an immense amount of magical energy. Furthermore, they're primordial ores carrying water system spiritual energy. Hearing this, Incheon added in a low tone. Water system mana is notoriously erratic, making them extremely difficult to forge. Michael smirked. That's a thing of the past. Modern alchemy forging techniques have advanced far beyond what they were. Seeing his arrogant expression, Inchan interjected, "It's true that the alchemy forging method isn't restricted by space or circumstance. However, the crafting time varies depending on the user and the type of ore. So under today's conditions, it should only take 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Michael continued to smile. His sinister smile was chilling. He lowered his voice. Han is capable of synthesizing any type of ore within just half an hour. A few days ago, Han was spinning the crystal with his spiritual energy. Inchan couldn't help but feel a bit bewildered, performing a resonance synthesis, and it only takes 30 minutes. He felt an involuntary shudder. What if his skill has reached the point where he can complete a resonance synthesis in 30 minutes? Then he's far beyond the other students. Not just the freshmen, he's surpassed the second years. Inchan's gaze swept over him, suspicion forming in his mind. They imposed a strict time limit, prepared the materials in advance, and even dictated the use of alchemy forging. They intentionally chose an exam topic that gives an absolute advantage to Han, who was already an expert in alchemy forging to begin with. Inchan's gaze landed on the man's face, Michael, as cunning as a venomous snake. After a moment of silence, Sehun let out a soft breath. This should be fine. Yunha looked toward him curiously. She couldn't help but feel a bit surprised. That thing is... The group's eyes were glued to him. Hydrotite and pyrolite. Michael frowned slightly, clearly feeling the unstable fluctuations from the two minerals. Those are the fire system versions of lapis lazuli and aquamarine, with an absurdly high concentration of mana. He commented coldly, I don't know how capable he is, but his ego is certainly massive. Over on this side, Han instinctively glanced over at Sehun. He squinted at Sehun's pile of materials. He intentionally chose ores that are the complete opposite of my materials. Thinking this, Han chuckled softly. What a fool. With your pitiful amount of mana, don't even dream of controlling pyrolite. He smiled faintly, his gaze lowering. This is going to be even easier than I thought. Suddenly, Han's expression changed as he looked back at Sehun. A system notification sounded. Skill Contract Sigil has been activated. The system's voice rang out dryly. Magical light enveloped his body. Contract Sigil Harmony is active. Contract Sigil allows the user to affix contract stones to use equipment slots. Current slots, left hand, right hand. Equipping Iron Flame Silver to the right arm. Immediately after a flame slowly descended and Sehun's arm was engulfed in fire. Witnessing that scene, Han gritted his teeth. That guy, what kind of useless little trick is he trying to pull? Meanwhile, he remained focused, activating the metal chunks. The iron ores began to circle each other. Seeing this, Sehun smirked, his eyes flashing with a fiery glow. At the same time, over here Unha's group was still staring intently at him. Michael raised an eyebrow. Is he trying to create resonance by using the same attribute as the mineral? How foolish. The basic principle is to use pure mana to make elemental ores resonate with each other, he judged silently. If he keeps forcing it like that, sooner or later the magical elements will explode out of control. Thinking this, Michael curled his lip into a sneer. That idiot is definitely about to cause an accident. Suddenly, Sehun swung his hand forward. His arm was covered in a layer of scales. The entire space fell silent. Sehun held his pose, witnessing the scene. Inchan and Yunha hurriedly bowed their heads while Michael's eyes widened. What is this incredible firepower? In that instant, a sword took shape. As soon as he saw it, Sehun's lips moved slightly, and the system's voice immediately sounded in his ear. You have unequipped the Iron Fire Silver. Equipment processing is complete. Congratulations, you have successfully crafted the blazing sword sheath. Faced with this astonishing sight, Unha's eyes widened in amazement. Michael, on the other hand, was so shocked his entire body froze. He couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. Impossible. Did he really succeed? The system screen immediately lit up. Equipment blazing sword sheath. Blazing sword sheath. Rank rare, quality low. A sheath imbued with a high concentration of fire-type mana. It has the ability to store and amplify fire attribute spiritual power, allowing the use of the special skill, Conflagration. The system screen immediately lit up. Equipment blazing sword sheath. Blazing sword sheath. Rank rare. Quality low. A sheath imbued with a high concentration of fire-type mana with the ability to store and amplify fire attribute spiritual power, allowing the use of the special skill, Conflagration. He stared blankly at the palm of his hand, screaming internally. This is completely illogical. The magical elements were supposed to explode. At this thought, Han's mind grew even more chaotic. Or did I misunderstand something? Just then, Michael flinched and hurriedly shouted, "Wait, stop! If you dare to infuse elemental spiritual power into those magic stones, then..." The sphere in Han's hand began to vibrate violently. His vision was suddenly obscured by the heat, and moments later the orb unexpectedly exploded, sending fragments flying everywhere. A loud explosion roared, and the entire space shook violently. That afternoon at the refining department's examination hall, the scene shifts to a room where crystal fragments are scattered across the floor. Over here, Han appeared with a scratched face. After a moment of silence, Ino hesitantly began to speak. Normally, after a thorough evaluation process, he paused for a moment, his teeth clenched as if trying to swallow his unconcealable frustration. "One of the two of you would be recommended for the position of department valedictorian." As he said this, Inong looked up directly at Han. However, what transpired is truly regrettable. In that instant, Han flinched, clutching his bleeding arm. His gaze lingered on Han before he continued. "I never expected the exam to end with one side having to forfeit." At the same time, Michael bit his lip, and though annoyed, he tried to keep his voice calm. Since a student was injured during the exam, the best course of action now is to nullify the results and schedule a retake on another day. Hearing this, Inong spun around. He objected sternly. "We do not have the right to invalidate the results of a completed examination. After all, wasn't that accident caused by student Han's own carelessness?" He tilted his head, his gaze as sharp as a knife cutting straight toward Inong. His voice was bone-chilling. "Professor Kim, it seems you care more about scores than the well-being of your student, As soon as the words were spoken, Inong fell silent, his eyes flashing with anger. Just then, Michael stood up and nonchalantly continued, "Let's put that aside for now." Michael walked slowly to the center of the hall, his eyes boring into Se-hun, as if trying to strip away his secrets. The fastest resonance speed ever recorded in the academic world is 5 minutes, and yet... He raised his voice, almost shouting, "A freshman who's barely even settled in can channel mana and achieve resonance." Instantly, do any of you find that the least bit plausible? The original nature of alchemical forging is a technique created to craft weapons using only mana in situations where conventional forging isn't possible. Therefore, the core of alchemical forging isn't the traditional method of overpowering the ore with the smith's life force, but rather to return to the very source of the mineral's core and awaken the latent life force within it. That is the true essence of alchemical forging. In that moment, Se-hun had only one thought: what I just performed is proof of that very principle. And this is also the answer that the world of smithing will soon discover after countless trials and errors. It's a simple method that will become the standard in a few years. So I have no reason to hide it, but I don't have the time to teach some old man who's so set in his ways that all he does is shout without ever listening. Finally, he spoke coldly. "I have no idea what the hell you're rambling on about." Hearing this, a corner of Michael's mouth twitched upward. "Just as I predicted. You used some kind of cheating trick." He let out a cold, venomously contemptuous laugh. "A worthless rookie forging a rare-grade item. If you were going to cheat, you should have at least done something a little more believable." Se-hun's brows furrowed, his eyes darkening at the insult, but his voice remained restrained. "What are you talking about?" Just then, someone cut into the tense conversation. "That's right, this is completely absurd." Michael bowed his head very low, but a calculating smirk played on his lips. "I knew you would understand this matter, sir. Headmaster, it is indeed true. This is utterly ridiculous. We need to disqualify Lee Se-hun for cheating and hold a retest." Meanwhile, she nonchalantly walked right past him. Eun-ha stopped before the sword as In-seong watched her dumbfounded. The headmaster at that moment. Eun-ha cautiously took hold of the sword. A whisper escaped her lips. "Incredible." Drool started dripping from Eun-ha's mouth, and then she suddenly pointed at Se-hun. "Student Lee Se-hun." Eun-ha made a sudden proposal, her eyes shining like a child who had discovered a treasure. "Can I have a little bite?" "No, actually, just one lick will do." "Can I just taste it once?" As soon as she said it, Michael was nearly struck dumb, his eyes flashing with bewilderment. Meanwhile, In-seong just stared at her, completely baffled. A lick. Suddenly, a rumbling sound echoed from inside Eun-ha's stomach. Upon hearing it, the entire group practically froze later that afternoon. In the city center, Se-hun was calmly leaving the academy. He stood under the crimson sunset as a thought rose in his mind. "As I suspected, the refinement department is still quite inexperienced. The level of completion still hasn't reached its final stage. Thinking this, Sehun tried to reassure himself, but even so, he let out a faint smile, his hair stirring in the evening breeze. His face showed an unconcealable look of smug satisfaction. Seeing that old vice headmaster Bamut trembling with rage? How pathetic. A passerby looked at Sehun with a wary eye and whispered to their friend, "His smile is really creepy." The friend hurriedly urged the other, "He's weird. Don't make eye contact, just ignore him and keep walking." Back to Sehun, he suddenly stopped short. "Wait a minute. Speaking of which, Bamut, that name sounds so familiar, but I can't remember where I've heard it before." Sehun frantically slapped his forehead, muttering nonstop, "Bamut, Bamut, Bamut." An image from his past life suddenly resurfaced. Lewis was whispering in a furious tone, "Back when I was in Babel, the cheap weapons I bought, after doing all that hard manual labor under that bastard's orders," suddenly exploded. He suddenly screamed, his voice filled with resentment. "And that's why I got this mana burn, and ended up in this miserable state. Damn it if it wasn't for that guy." Across from him, Sehun just looked at Lewis with a cold gaze. Back in the present, he stopped walking. A horrifying thought flashed through Sehun's mind. The name of the blacksmith who left the mad dog Louis Vallon permanently disabled was Bamut. Could it be that Han Bamut is that guy? Thinking this, he frowned slightly. "My top priority in this life is to quickly approach and win over the three hounds. But for the mad dog, it seems that won't be necessary anymore." Then Sehun's lips curled into a cold, sinister smile as a thought formed in his mind. "Because if I just stop Han Bamut from running rampant, Lewis will never go down the wrong path." A moment later, the scene shifts to a classroom in the refinement department. Inside, an angry shout rings out. "Are you really planning to make student Lee Sehun the top student of our department?" A representative spoke up, his voice slow but filled with suspicion. Professors from other departments spoke out. "Are you serious about this decision?" The person next to him hesitated slightly. "Even if that is your intention, this is going a bit too far." Eun-ha slowly placed both hands on the table, her calm gaze sweeping over every face. Her voice was low but resonant. "Does anyone here object?" An elderly professor shook his head slightly, his eyes showing a hint of caution as he spoke in a compromising tone. "Not exactly. Rather than an objection," Michael suddenly cut in. "This is more like sincere advice," he continued nonchalantly. "After all, headmaster, you've only just taken up this post a short while ago." Hearing this, Eun-ha's expression changed. It was unconcealed anger. Another person continued, "That's right. We admit the student's equipment is very impressive. But perhaps we need to reconsider this more carefully," In Seong immediately interjected. "You professors are only saying that because you haven't seen Lee Sehun's blaze-storing sheath with your own eyes. The craftsmanship may be crude, but if you look at how the mana operates and its compatibility with the five-colored flame sword," one of them couldn't help but say in awe, "it's truly astonishing. But to be honest, I'm still concerned about its practicality." At the same time, another person spoke up. "This weapon has probably reached less than 60% of the level of completion that Lee Sehun was aiming for, and that very imperfection is what shows its immense potential." She made sure to emphasize every single word. "If, after you've witnessed..." The atmosphere in the room seemed to freeze, as Eun-ha slowly continued, each word landing like a hammer blow. "The upcoming demonstration by top student Lee Sehun, you still cannot accept my decision." Then she declared clearly, "I will immediately resign from my position as headmaster." In the middle of a vast plaza, Lewis's voice echoed from sound amplification magic, ringing out as solemnly as an ancient oath. 54 years ago. "For years, the celestial realm bestowed upon us the Tower of Heroes for the evolution of mankind." The atmosphere suddenly grew heavy as an illusion technique recreated the sky. His voice turned graver. In response to that, "Hell unleashed the swamp of chaos which rots away all life. While we found new opportunities to pursue, a colossal disaster struck at the very same time." Standing in the center of the grand hall, Louis lectured earnestly, his tone incredibly eloquent. "Babel was also formed within that very turbulent current. This is the largest academy in history, built right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. To this day, Babel has trained countless outstanding heroes. Speaking of which, he solemnly called out a prime example, the ascended emperor, Sir Louis Sub. And then, you too will become one of them." Lewis's voice gradually became earnest. "Take a step forward, for all who have set foot in this academy." Babel, His voice suddenly soared solemn and sacred, like an oath on the battlefield. That is the noble mission of a hero. The person who just spoke was the ascended emperor, Chou. Louis Sub-Sehun stood silently in the crowd, his eyes quietly observing Louis on the stage, his mind filled with calculations. Seeing him in person like this, he seems like a very kind person, though in reality he's not exactly a purely gentle old man. The master of ceremonies stepped forward, raising a microphone. Next, we will have a performance from the top students of this year's entrance exam. Will the top students of each department please come up to the stage? Hearing the invitation, a group of male and female students walked onto the stage one by one. Sehun watched their proud figures advance, his gaze darkening as a memory from his past life surfaced. The top student of the department, huh? In my past life, I used to wonder why so many people were so arrogant just because they had good grades at the academy. It was at this moment, the MC shouted, "Well then, right now we will begin the skills demonstration." He glanced around, a wry smile forming on his lips. Seeing this, I think I understand the problem now. At the same time, the MC raised his voice. The model being used for today's demonstration is none other than this masterpiece. Ladies and gentlemen, as soon as he finished speaking, automaton model number 9 appeared. The moment he saw it, he excitedly introduced it. A golem from the Rower factory, automaton model number 9. It even possesses combat capabilities equivalent to a C-rank hero. Over here, Sehun's eyes were glued to automaton model number 9. He chuckled with interest. A combat-specialized automaton, is it? Since it's not equipped with any specific weapons, I guess it'll use martial arts, huh? The MC extended his hand towards the arena entrance. Our first challenger is the representative from the combat department. His voice rang out dramatically. The performance will be conducted by the top student of the Aqua Department, Mr. Jack Myers. The top student of the Aqua Department, Jack Myers. Shortly after, a Jack and automaton model number 9 appeared on the stage. Sehun narrowed his eyes, observing the dark-haired teenager who walked out. If it's Jack, I think he's the third son of the Myers family. Rumor has it he's an eccentric for pursuing martial arts, despite being born into a family famous for swordsmanship. Looks like those rumors are true. Just then, the MC shouted loudly, "Well then, we will begin immediately." On the opposite side, the automaton's eyes lit up. That was also when he signaled the start of the match. Right now, as soon as the words were spoken, it spun its foot hard on the ground. The automaton was seen rushing towards Jack. Instantly, it threw a punch. Jack immediately twisted his body to dodge. Meanwhile, the automaton frantically swung its fists at him. A moment later, Jack leaped down his feet, sliding across the ground. He looked up at it. Now it's my turn to put on a show. With that said, Jack charged straight at the automaton without hesitation. He was seen clenching his fist and immediately punching it straight in the body. Witnessing that scene, the students were nearly speechless. Over here, Jack was still relentlessly attacking the automaton. Sehun's eyes widened when he saw that incredible burst of speed. What is this? I clearly remember him dying early as an A-ranker in his mid-20s. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a bit bewildered. With this level of skill, he should be a once-in-15-years genius at Babel. Why did he only stop at A-rank in my past life? Sehun wondered to himself, full of doubt. Back to Jack, he curled his lip into a cold smile. With just this much. At the last moment, he swung his arm to end the fight with the automaton. Its head was seen flying into the air before falling to the ground. Jack pulled back his fist and stood tall amidst the slowly settling dust. He let out a soft breath. It's been a while since I've had such a good workout. The MC's voice trembled slightly. Then he almost screamed with excitement. An absolutely spectacular and amazing performance. Student Jack just took down an automaton with the power of a C-rank hero in a single breath. The MC turned back to Jack, unable to hold back his admiration. That's the top student of the Aqua Department for you, over here. Sehun frowned slightly, thinking to himself. He really made a huge splash right from the start. The next person is definitely going to be under a lot of pressure. The announcer's voice rang out again, this time with a completely different tone, calmer and more dignified. Next up, we would like to invite the top student of the UR Support Department. The performance will be conducted by student Erika Ino. He raised an eyebrow slightly as he watched the long, dark-haired girl walk out. So she's the top student of UR. Pressure. There's no need for her to worry about that at all. Erika, the eldest daughter of the Ino clan, one of the 3 most illustrious families in Japan. She isn't a conqueror of the summit, but she built a reputation as an S-rank hero, with a myth-grade weapon. However, in the end, she was corrupted into a demon and was eliminated by her own family. At this moment, Sehun made a decision in his mind. Since she'll be corrupted into a demon in the future, befriending her won't do me any good. Then suddenly, Erika turned and looked towards him. Seeing this, Sehun froze for a moment. He stared at her blankly. He dazedly followed Erika's steps, his mind a tangled mess. What was that? Did she just look at me? At the same time, the MC announced in a serious tone. The automaton being used for this performance is model number 9, equipped with armor that provides 1.5 times superior defensive capabilities. Compared to the previous version, he excitedly shouted, shaking the entire arena. Let's wait and see what surprise student in Erika will bring us. Then suddenly Erika took out a crow. A demonic glint flashed in her eyes as she softly murmured the command, "Go." The moment the words were spoken, the crow immediately flew straight out, soaring up into the sky. It circled the automaton. Faced with this unexpected sight, Sehun was momentarily bewildered. A crow. At the same time, the automaton raised its head to follow it, its eyes suddenly flashing with a sinister red light. Over here, he carefully observed the automaton, silently assessing it. The automaton has switched to a full defensive state. It'll be very difficult to break through such a solid defense, especially since it's a model that specializes in defense. Back with Erika, the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. Suddenly, the crow spread its wings, extending its legs to reveal sharp talons. One of the crow's eyes also flashed with a blue light. Under the sun, it spread its wings, and then suddenly the crow accelerated, diving straight down at the automaton below. The whole arena was thrown into chaos as dust and dirt flew everywhere. Witnessing that scene, Sehun was nearly stunned. On this side, cracks had appeared on the automaton's body, and electricity surged out. A hole had somehow been pierced through it. Immediately, the automaton's frame collapsed to the ground. Seeing this, Erika beckoned, and the crow returned to her. The announcer once again roared, "Incredible, absolutely phenomenal, with just a single blow. The armored automaton has fallen." She pierced right through a C-rank opponent. The crowd cheered happily. "Erika, you're amazing." Back with Sehun, he forced a smile. With an atmosphere this heated, I have a feeling I'll get booed if I just show off my weapon and call it a day. Right at that moment, the announcer shouted, "And finally, the top student of the Boshiba Technology Department. Please welcome student Lee Sehun." At that very moment, the announcer enthusiastically continued, "Next up, we will begin the demonstration by the top student of the Boshiba Technology Department, student Lee Sehun. Elsewhere. Demonstration supervisor number 1. Lewis was watching the battle on a monitor. He couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle. The skill level of this year's new top students is truly impressive. How long has it been since we've seen a top student from the refining department, huh? After speaking, Lewis couldn't help but feel a little worried. I wonder if the pressure is too much for that boy. Beside him was demonstration supervisor number 2, Principal Eun-ha. She stated firmly, "There won't be any problems." The stands buzzed as Sehun stepped into the light. The announcer smiled knowingly. Will he deliver a performance that surpasses the explosive displays from Jack and Erika just now? Here! Someone couldn't help but exclaim, "He's so handsome." The announcer's curiosity was suddenly piqued. Is that rare-grade equipment? That's really rare for the refining department, a female student shouted excitedly. Red freshman? At the same time, Sehun decisively drew the sword from its sheath. He swung the blade sharply to one side, his eyes fixed on his opponent. In that instant, an image of the sword appeared right behind Sehun, along with countless functions. A male student said, his eyes half admiring, half skeptical. That's right. For a freshman to have crafted a rare-grade item is miraculous. The person next to him hesitated. But, compared to the other departments, it seems to be lacking that wow factor. Murmurs spread as a few students showed their disappointment. For a rare-grade item, it looks a bit plain, don't you think? Well, the previous department's demonstrations were just so flashy. A male student couldn't help but feel a bit confused. I'm not really sure what he's planning to show in this demonstration. I really want to know. In a corner of the stands, Michael smirked. His eyes glittered with ambition. The heavens are on my side. He stared at Sehun with a sinister gaze. With this move, the principal's seat at Boshiba will surely be mine. In contrast to Michael Eun-ha's face was as calm as the sea. Back in the arena, the announcer quickly made a statement. To serve for this demonstration, model number 10, with power comparable to a D-rank hero. He was suddenly cut off. No. Sehun looked up, his eyes flashing like a newly drawn blade. Switch it to model number 8, and please equip it with additional armor. The announcer almost dropped the list in his hands, stammering in complete shock. Huh, what in the world is he asking for? Model number 8 can sometimes withstand attacks from a B-rank hero, and he wants it to wear extra armor on top of that. He hesitated for a moment. Well, that? The announcer continued hesitantly. It's difficult to prepare that request on such short notice. He thought to himself, are you trying to ruin this demonstration? Just then Inchon spoke up. I have already taken care of everything. As he spoke, a metallic entity suddenly appeared. He looked up toward the automaton. This automaton was now fully armored. Seeing this, the announcer was momentarily stunned. He prepared it in advance. He looked around worriedly, his tone hesitant. If you're that determined, then... At the same time, Sehun turned to look at Inchon. He was silent, his gaze filled with anticipation as it met his. From the VIP box, the announcer shouted excitedly, well then, let's see you go all out, model! He forced a strained smile. Now, I have no idea what's going to happen in this match either. Right after the announcer shouted, begin! As soon as the battle bell rang, Inchon tensed up. In that moment, he silently called out, go on and wreak some havoc. Sehun smirked. All right then. He glanced towards the stands where Inchon was watching, a hint of a smile in his eyes. I should probably live up to his expectations a little, shouldn't I? Then the sword in his hand began to radiate a fierce aura. Sehun slightly lowered his stance and the energy immediately coiled into a circle. Witnessing this sight, the crowd roared with excitement. That's insane! At the same time, Han curled his lip in disdain. It's all for show. He has no real power. What can someone lacking mana possibly accomplish? The streams of fire energy within the 5 color fire sword naturally conflict with one another. This kind of explosion could harm the user if not controlled with an immense amount of mana. However, by utilizing the ability to store fire, energy in the fire storing sheath and the technique of channeling the red flame inward. At that moment, Sehun parted his lips and mumbled, charging complete. On the opposite side, the automaton had activated its barrier. Meanwhile, he swung his sword powerfully, activating the flames. The move he just performed made the entire stadium tremble. A thought formed in Sehun's mind. If I unleash the inferno right now, the compressed fire spirits inside will... His eyes were fixed on the automaton's barrier. At the decisive moment, Sehun mumbled, explode all at once. In the stands, Michael's face turned pale as if he'd realized something was wrong. The announcer's jaw dropped in astonishment. What the hell is this madman trying to do? After a while, the thick cloud of dust began to settle. Sehun slowly sheathed his sword, then let out a few ragged breaths. Once it was over, Sehun's gaze followed the gash on the arena floor. Looks like I might have overdone it a little. Realizing the critical situation, the announcer urgently called out, technical support team, get to the central hall immediately. He then hastily announced, with that performance, the competition has concluded. A while later, the sound of high heels echoed throughout the grand hall. Inside, Sehun wore a confused expression. As soon as she saw him, Unha gave a slight bow. I'm very sorry to have kept you waiting. After calling you here, I was just helping clean up the wreckage at the arena. Sehun scratched his head in embarrassment. Please don't worry about it. I'm the one who should be apologizing. I'm so sorry for causing that scene in the central hall. He suddenly lowered his voice. I should have controlled my power a little better. She looked momentarily bewildered. What are you talking about? Cadet Lee Sehun? She asked, looking at his confused face. Do you actually think I called you here to scold you? Unha immediately denied it. Of course not. No. The real reason I asked you to come here is... Just then, her stomach rumbled again. The strange noise startled Sehun for a moment. She coughed lightly to hide her embarrassment. What I mean is... Finally, she made her offer. I am willing to pay 10 times the market price. Unha looked directly at him, her gaze resolute. Would you be willing to part with the 5-color fire sword? And the fire-storing sheath for me? Hearing this, Sehun's eyes widened for a split second. What? In that very moment, a bond with Unha was established. Unha suddenly leaned in close to him, her voice turning coquettish. That really is a wonderful set of equipment. Suddenly, a system window lit up right in front of Sehun. A contract with the target Unha has been established. Current contract level with creator Lee Sehun is level 1. His eyes widened, pupils trembling in shock. This fast. In my past life, I had to offer her weapons so many times before this bond finally formed. Sehun replied awkwardly, The thank you, ma'am. He silently tried to calm himself. In any case, this is a stroke of good luck. Lines of magical characters appeared before his eyes as the system's voice echoed steadily, executing contract extraction. The system's voice became more solemn as if announcing a rare treasure. Extracting contract from target Yunha. Gluttonous trait contract, high rank. Quality masterpiece. A type of iron that generates heat by consuming other metals. It will corrode any iron-based material it touches and absorb its core essence into itself. Absorbs iron to create blood ore. Sehun stared blankly at the object before him. So it's done. It was at this very moment, Yunha once again leaned over him. You're going to sell that item to me, right? He immediately shook his head. No, ma'am. Suddenly, a voice came from outside. Director, it is Kim Inchin. His voice was clear and formal as if delivering an order that could not be delayed. The Academy headmaster has announced that the award ceremony will proceed now. Inchan turned to Sehun. May I take Cadet Lee Sehun with me? She nodded slightly, her gaze as deep and still as a waveless lake at night. I understand. Sehun quickly turned to leave, then furtively glanced back. I'll see you later then, ma'am. Over here. Yunha's stomach continued to cry for help. At what was considered the heart of Babel Academy, the Maruk Mansion Glass Bridge main building, the scene shifts to inside the mansion. Sehun hurriedly followed behind Incheon. As he walked, Incheon reminded him in a low voice, his gaze more stern than usual. Be sure to mind your etiquette when you are before the Academy headmaster. Not only was he generous enough to overlook you destroying the hall during your demonstration, but he is also on a completely different level from us. He smiled faintly, his eyes strangely calm. You don't need to worry so much, sir. Sehun quickly stepped inside. Louis looked straight at the young man before him. You must be student Lee Sehun, the ascended Emperor Louis headmaster of the Academy. Before I turned back time, he was the hero who sacrificed himself in a lone battle against the demon god, Diathene, one of the 6 great demon gods. His deathly visage was suddenly recreated in my memory, and a sense of admiration rose within me. He truly was a perfectionist. Louis then spoke. The weapons you demonstrated today were all exceptionally interesting. He sighed softly. I can't say I'm not the least bit disappointed, but I have very high expectations for you. Hearing this, Sehun froze on the spot. The slight disappointment in his heart stirred like smoldering embers in a forge. Even though I was mentally prepared, I still feel like throwing the 5-colored flame sword and the igniting scabbard right back into the forge. Just then, Louis made an offer. Therefore, in recognition of your talent and effort, I will grant you 2 rewards. He asked seriously. Tell me what is it that you need? Sehun's eyes widened slightly. For the first time, surprise was evident on his usually calm face. 2 whole rewards. He quickly replied, his voice clear and without a hint of hesitation. I wish for rewards that can help increase my mana capacity and my memory. As soon as he finished speaking, Louis waved his arm in the air and a sigil formed in the empty space. Sehun stared at the 2 treasures. Black curtain stone, hero rank, exquisite quality. A fragment glowing with an inky light fallen from the night sky with the property of devouring everything except darkness. It has the ability to absorb mana from anything it comes into contact with. Dream ivory tusk, hero rank, medium quality. It is the tusk of a mythical beast that feeds on dreams. It holds oniric mana and has the ability to cross the boundary between reality and slumber, allowing one to connect with dreams by using its oniric mana source. He wore a bewildered expression. This is the black curtain stone, a true gemstone, but the dream ivory tusk is far harder to find. Sehun smirked. It's a bit difficult to control right now, but I already have an idea of how to use them. He observed him for a while longer, his voice softer but still carrying weight. Are you satisfied with them? Sehun bowed his head slightly as a sign of gratitude. They are truly wonderful, sir. Right after he left, someone's voice rang out. What are you planning? Oh, Magic Mirror, I have my doubts about why that boy alone received 2 rewards. This is not like you at all, Louis replied casually. I gave them to him simply because the child has the capacity to handle them. Hearing the answer, it couldn't help but exclaim, is that so? I just get the feeling that he's like a little old man. He said in a low voice, that only proves that he possesses a depth so profound that even you can sense it. Louis watched Sehun's figure disappear down the ancient hallway. What's more, even I cannot fully comprehend the depths of that young man. The scene shifts to a mansion named Maruk. Inside a classroom, a group of male students were chattering non-stop. Just then, a student cheerfully approached Han. "Hey Han, where do you want to go for lunch?" He refused immediately without a second thought. "Sorry, I have a meeting with Senior Hogwarts today." The student's jaw dropped in amazement. "A meeting with the top third-year student of the mage department," Han replied nonchalantly. "It's just that our two families are close, so we meet often. He said he'd give me some advice about academy life, so we decided to meet up." The student moved a little closer. "Well then, if it's okay, could I come along?" Just then, Sehun walked in. He glanced at Han with a cold look. The moment they saw Sehun, the entire classroom fell silent. His gaze was once again fixed on Han. He suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. What's with that creepy look? Seeing this, Sehun smirked contemptuously. It seems he's starting to understand his place. "Over here." Han gritted his teeth. His pride stung. "Damn it, to think I have to lose to a lowlife like him." The classroom door swung open forcefully. Incron strode in decisively, his stern gaze sweeping across the room. "All of you settle down in your seats." He glanced around the classroom. All right. It seemed everyone was present and focused on him, so he continued, "Since this is our first class, we'll start with self-introductions." He seriously introduced the item. This metal ingot is a material called reflective alloy. It's 10 times more sensitive to magical power than ordinary ores. That's why if you channel your magical power into it like this, at this, Inchin emphasized every word, the weapon in your mind will easily be formed at that same moment. Sehun stared at him with admiration. No wonder he's on the list of the top 100 artisans in the world. Still during the contract stone test. I vaguely realized this man is a true prodigy. Inchin paused for a beat, his voice deepening with philosophical weight. Due to its extremely sensitive nature, it is very difficult to use as a practical weapon, but it reflects the traits in your subconscious, helping the user to see their true self. He suddenly raised his voice. That is why we call equipment made from reflective alloy altered egos. The refining department's self-introduction assignment will be replaced by the forging of these egos. At the last minute, Inchin didn't forget to add, the finished products will be displayed in the main building for 1 week, so do your best. The students replied in unison, "Yes, sir." Sehun's gaze settled on the ingot of reflective alloy as he thought to himself, "This has to be worth over 10 million guan per piece. That's babble for you. Even their orientation is this extravagant." At the same time, Han flinched as he grasped the sword. Seeing this, Sehun turned and sighed in frustration. "There isn't a single person here who has the most important talent." Just then, Incheon spoke up. "And finally, student Lee Sehun." He quickly answered, "Yes, sir." Sehun thought to himself, "Well, I'm the top student of the department after all. There's no reason to hide my abilities anymore." A bold idea suddenly struck him. As ambition flared in Sehun's eyes, he thought, if I'm going to do this, maybe I should go all out for once. Then a massive explosion suddenly erupted inside the classroom. At the same time, a male student remarked sarcastically, "Wow, there's quite a crowd here. Must be because of Lee Sehun's charisma." He then continued, his tone a mix of mockery and irritation. "It's hilarious how they keep hyping him up, saying his class is different and all that when he's just a student. And a freshman at that." The person next to him completely agreed. "Exactly." The student leaned closer to him and nodded slightly. "That's what I was about to say." The two looked up at the object as Incheon's voice echoed, "Although an unusual incident occurred during its creation where it spontaneously absorbed 19 nearby reflective alloys, we have assessed that this demonstrates student Lee Sehun's innate talent. Therefore, we have decided to display it in its original state." A male student scoffed. A sarcastic voice rose from the murmuring crowd. "That was definitely just a coincidence caused by some skill." The person next to him gestured with his chin towards the piece, his eyes full of suspicion and envy. "Didn't this only happen because he used too many reflective alloys at once?" Another male student chimed in. "It's been a long time. And since we've had a top student from the refining department, they're probably just trying to market him as a real genius." Just then, Erica suddenly spoke up. "I, for one, have a slightly different point of view." Jack suddenly stepped closer to him, smirking. "I agree with your opinion." At this, Jack lowered his voice. It seems the number of reflective alloys currently there still wasn't enough to display Lee Sehun's true potential. In another scene, a hammer slammed down. At that moment, Sehun's face was covered in cold sweat. The man lowered his voice, a look of disbelief flashing in his eyes. Did you manage to time that? So far, there hasn't been a deviation of even 0.01 seconds. Assistant Han stared blankly at him. What on earth can we possibly teach? A kid as brilliant as this? He chuckled softly. Well then, let's just skip his part. Then he turned and gestured, Does anyone want to see a demonstration? After a moment, Assistant Han announced, All right, class dismissed. Over on this side, Sehun's eyes were still glued to the hammer. He then stared down at the metal fragments on the table. Without hesitation, Sehun raised the hammer once more as Assistant Han suddenly spoke up. Are you planning on smashing it? He stopped immediately and bowed politely. Assistant Instructor. The man stepped closer, reminding him, We need to hand these items over after this week's forging class. So don't go breaking them, okay? Sehun tilted his head slightly. We have to hand them in. Assistant Han looked exasperated. Of course! Where do you think students get their operating budget? Babel provides support based on the performance of weapons sold on the open market. He pondered for a moment, then asked, So what exactly are you dissatisfied with right now? Is it your physical condition or your mana reserves? At the unexpected question, Sehun chuckled. Right now, the biggest problem is my body. At that moment, a complex thought stirred within him. To create the forging tools I need, I have to forge Magistone, but I lack the stamina for that kind of work. The assistant tilted his head, his voice suggestive as if offering a tempting shortcut if it were truly necessary. After a month of thought, he proposed a plan. Wouldn't it be faster to use enhancement charms than to physically train? Hearing this, he couldn't help but laugh. I never even considered that option, because that's the way I always avoided things before I turned back time. The corner of Sehun's mouth curled up as if he had just discovered a new path. Thinking back since I've returned to the past, and am currently having issues with my physical stamina, I can totally forge Mactite stone while under the effects of an enhancement charm. He bowed his head slightly. Thank you very much for that useful advice. Assistant Han shook his head slightly. It's nothing, really. Then Sehun looked up, his gaze shifting to the hammer in the man's hand. While you're forging, he added, I should mention that you're using too much mana. Far more than is necessary. Try to reduce it to about 70% of what you're using now and instead, focus your strike on a single point. Before leaving, Sehun stated with certainty, doing it that way will be more effective for you right now. Hearing this, the man gave a forced smile. A freshman just gave a TA advice. Then Assistant Han turned to look at the hammer. The sky was getting hotter. Babel has always encouraged proactive independent learning for each individual student. The system's voice rang out. The gates are beginning to open. The instructor's voice continued to broadcast. You have the right to register for classes from other departments or even take up to 10 subjects in a single semester. However, you are required to complete all of your major's required courses, and if you accumulate 3 poor grades, you will be immediately expelled. Everything is completely up to you, but you must be responsible for your own choices. Suddenly, the PA system announced, the next stop is Ur, the Ur district designated for the Department of Magic. Right then, Sehun calmly stepped off the train. As soon as he looked up, Erica suddenly appeared, a male student blocking his path. Don't just stand there blocking the way. Move! His voice was full of provocation. Sehun frowned. Who are these people, appearing out of nowhere to start a fight? He raised his voice in warning. You're the ones who need to get out of the way. Hearing this, the male student's body trembled with anger. Erica stepped closer, asking curiously, Where are you headed, huh? At Erica's unexpected action, the male student was dumbfounded. Lady Erica over here. Sehun answered honestly. To the Department of Magic. I was wondering if there were any electives I could register for, to take on the side. Seeing this, she decisively made an offer. Then let me show you the way. He quickly cut in, Lady Erica, the meeting is about to start. She dismissed him curtly. You all just go by yourselves. The male student looked urgent. But the upperclassmen said they were really hoping you would be there. Erica glanced over with a cold, indifferent look. Her voice was calm, but allowed no rebuttal. I'm not interested. Back with Sehun, his expression hadn't wavered in the slightest. Then the two of them quickly left, despite the male student calling out, Lady Erica. When the space grew quiet, Erica turned to him, her gaze suddenly much more serious. What kind of elective are you looking for exactly? What is it? Sehun slowly replied, I'm trying to learn more about enhancement charms. She continued to press, what kind of enhancement effect specifically? He answered calmly, something that can boost physical abilities but absolutely must not interfere with the forging process. Hearing this, Erika immediately suggested, then how about trying barrier magic? Sehun froze. Barrier magic isn't that type of magic, usually just for defense. She slowly explained, it can be incredibly versatile depending on how you use it. Erika took a thin piece of paper from her pocket while signaling, let me give you an example. She held the paper out to him. Try to rip this paper. Sehun took it clearly, feeling a thin layer of magical energy covering its surface. He was surprised. Did she increase its durability? No, not exactly. It still maintains its original properties, but it will automatically become much tougher when affected by a strong external force. Sehun stared at the piece of paper, analyzing it. This technique is perfect for forging because it requires such meticulous control. Erika let out a faint laugh. For complex applications like this, you'll probably need the help of a professor. He stared blankly at the piece of paper, a doubt rising in his mind. Hey, this magic formula looks really familiar. Meanwhile, she was chattering on. The professor who teaches barrier composition married someone from a branch of my family, so I can introduce you to him directly if you'd like. As she spoke, Erika's voice rose slightly to make her offer. In exchange? Suddenly, Sehun exclaimed, this is it. The piece of paper was instantly torn to shreds. Seeing this, she couldn't help but feel a little bewildered. You were able to understand my family's barrier magic in that short amount of time, and you even managed to dispel it. That morning at the magic department of UR University, the sight of Sehun appearing next to her right in the middle of campus left everyone stunned, turning them into the center of attention, followed by curious stares and non-stop whispers. Why is Erika with some guy from another department? I think I saw them together yesterday, too. If I remember correctly, it was at the last exhibition. They showed up together there, too. Amidst the staring eyes and the whispers that filled the campus, he could only let out a helpless sigh. Man, gossip really does spread. 'Tis fast. Why can't these people just stop butting into other people's business? It's ridiculous. If Erika actually had feelings for me, there'd be some kind of bond between us already. Anyway, I wonder what criteria they use to choose who gets into this class. I already registered for it. But they said I had to pass a test first. Erika immediately spoke up. This is the location for the exam on barrier structures. Sehun began to look around. He scanned the area, then asked doubtfully, this forest? The other candidates couldn't stop complaining irritably. Damn it! What god-forsaken corner of the world is this? He silently observed the forest in front of him, thinking to himself, are we on some kind of treasure hunt just to take a test? This is already getting annoying. Could they be using a barrier to hide something? And just then, Sehun happened to step on a strange spot. The barrier surrounding the forest instantly shattered. As it broke apart under Sehun's feet, a teaching assistant appeared and announced clearly, you've passed the test. Utterly shocked, he could only stammer in disbelief. What? Robert looked up at the teaching assistant by his desk with a skeptical look. So that young lady is showing an interest in the top student of our department, Professor Robert Perry, specializing in barrier structures at UR's magic department. The assistant held out his phone to the professor and replied, that's right, take a look at this list. As he looked at the list on the assistant's phone, he remarked skeptically, I found it strange myself that she'd suddenly apply for a basic class like this. But I'm not exactly thrilled since there's also a recommendation from the young master of the Enro family. That's why this year we're adding an exam using the Labyrinth of Lost Souls. The Labyrinth of Lost Souls. It's a type of barrier that scrambles the senses and makes a person lose their way. While it's just a rudimentary barrier for someone completely clueless about magic, they wouldn't even realize it's there. Witnessing what happened, Robert was stunned into silence, marveling internally as he realized the boy's true ability. Even without the young lady lifting a finger to help, he managed to break through that labyrinth on pure instinct alone. He announced clearly to the crowd, all of you here have passed the first round. We will now divide you into classes based on the second exam. A student immediately raised his hand with confidence. I'd like to go first, sir. He thought to himself, this is the perfect chance to impress Erika. Robert nodded in approval. Very well. The second test is also quite simple. You will use your mana to dismantle the active barrier before you. I will be judging you based on your completion time. So be fast and precise. Begin. A barrier appeared in the shape of a spider web with a spider at its center serving as the core. This spider would continuously try to escape whenever it sensed mana. Traveling along the web's strands, and as long as it exists, the web will regenerate indefinitely. Seeing the barrier before him, the student who had volunteered froze for a moment. He tensed up, calculating in his head. I don't have enough mana to envelop the entire structure the conventional way. In that case, I'll have to overwhelm it with speed. He glanced at his stopwatch and commented sternly, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. You need to focus more on understanding the barrier's structure. Still, it's not a terrible result. The student glanced over at the young lady, hoping for a sign of encouragement. But Erica's face was completely expressionless, as calm as a rippleless lake. The student could only bow his head in disappointment. Thank you, Professor. Robert then called out decisively, next person. Next, hurry up. After everyone else had their turn, he stated with a sense of resignation, all of you will be starting in the basic class. Now for Erica Ino's test. You may begin. She stepped forward with an unusually calm demeanor. Erica simply raised a single finger and gently touched the barrier. The entire structure flashed brilliantly before shattering into 1,000 pieces. The space fell completely silent. The surrounding students just stared, their faces dumbfounded with shock. And then, the whispers started rising like a tide. How could she be that unbelievably fast? She deconstructed the entire formula and caused a total collapse. The top student is on another level. As the murmurs of praise continued, the professor slowly stepped forward. Robert glanced at the stopwatch, then said coolly, 22 seconds. Good work. But if you had used the standard dismantling method, you might have been 2 seconds faster. Unfazed by Robert's strict critique, Erica simply bowed her head slightly and replied calmly, I'll keep that in mind. He said nothing more, his sharp gaze shifting to the next candidate, a silent warning of his incredibly high standards. He then called out the final name, last up Lee Sehun. As Sehun stepped forward, Robert silently sized him up. He doesn't look like anything special. Let's just wait and see what he can do. But instead of rushing to cast a spell, or performing some complex preparation, he calmly sat down right in front of the barrier. The whispers among the students grew louder. What the heck is he doing? Doesn't he know he's being timed? But Sehun remained perfectly calm, sitting there. His gaze was steady as he meticulously analyzed every layer of the energy shield's structure. This barrier, it has properties very similar to Maxeok, namely the ability to self-regenerate and return to its original state. If the impact doesn't reach a certain threshold, then in order to forge this type of stone, the smith must channel every impulse at the exact same moment with perfect precision. Robert finally lost his patience. He strode over and questioned him. Just what kind of trick are you trying to pull? Listen to me, Erica's voice cut in. Just leave him be. Faced with Erica's powerful command, he could only fall silent in frustration. Robert said no more. He pressed his lips together tightly and stepped back. But in the absolute silence, Sehun's mind was working at maximum speed. So then if I do this, could I retain the impulses that have accumulated inside the stone instead of having it shatter or dissipate as usual? The moment his finger touched the weak point, the entire barrier suddenly erupted in a fierce blaze. Amidst the dense, stunned atmosphere, Sehun spoke in a normal, indifferent tone as if he had just finished a trivial chore. It's done. Just like this. I can forge the inkstone, he thought to himself. Sehun stood up and walked through the rubble with an air of indifference as if its existence had never meant anything. As soon as the barrier fell, he stood and walked away decisively. Ignoring all the stares around him, the professor looked at his watch and announced, "The time is 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Robert watched Sehun's back as he quietly departed. He thought to himself, how much time he took doesn't really matter at all. This time it might have taken him 7 minutes, but I'm sure the next time he faces a similar barrier, he'll destroy it in the blink of an eye. He didn't just break the barrier, he established his own formula to dispel that magic. She watched his lonely figure depart, her eyes filled with anxiety. If his divine forging skills are combined with magic, Erica thought, I'm honestly afraid of what kind of monstrous artifact he'll create. A letter arrived announcing, we have received an application for intermediate forging with hero grade or higher materials from first-year student Lee Sehun. In accordance with Article 8 of the Forging Workshop Safety Regulations, those who wish to supervise, please contact us. At that moment, the instructor looked at the computer screen and thought, I wonder how many people will show up this time. Suddenly, messages flooded in, startling him. Wow, everyone's responding really fast! However, absolutely no one from Vice Principal Michael's faction sent an application. Rumor has it that the atmosphere over there is very tense because his son was pushed down to rank 2. Looks like the rumors are true. The instructor began to ponder. All right then, I should start choosing people. His eyes widened in shock as he read a message. The headmaster has announced that she will personally supervise student Lee Sehun's intermediate forging session. Suddenly, Unha appeared and spoke up. "It's been a while, student Lee Sehun." He froze completely shocked. "Someone as busy as you! They came all the way down here in person," she replied nonchalantly. "As the headmaster, I'm here to personally verify your skills." Sehun didn't look directly at Unha and simply replied softly, "If that's how it's going to be, I'll have no choice but to pour all my effort into the craft." With that, he immediately began forging on the spot. The first step in forging inkstone. In reality, there are many methods to process this stone, but the most difficult technique among them is the night veil process. The stone must be placed in a completely dark space with no light, and then mana is used to separate the impurities from it. During this stage, the ink spreads like water. With even the slightest mistake in mana control, the stone will instantly harden and become useless. It may sound easy, but in reality, it's no different from restructuring matter itself. She remained completely silent, observing Sehun's every move. While his hands moved rhythmically, Sehun's mind began its cold calculations. 1/4 is the best limit I can achieve. Any smaller than that and its performance won't be sufficient. Step 2. He began to conjure a blazing red flame directly from his palm. The incredible heat enveloped the metal, causing the surrounding space to twist with Sehun's every breath. He channeled mana through the crimson flame to filter out only the suitable firepower. This stabilized flame is called the flowing false fire, and it has the property of maintaining the exact same temperature as the moment it was formed. Step 3, using a hammer enveloped in the flowing false fire to strike the heavy inkstone. The key is to not rest until the deformation subsides, thanks to the properties of that flame. Watching the blazing fire, Unha thought grimly, even if he's immune to fire, it doesn't mean he doesn't feel pain. Just how much has he worn himself down? He swung the hammer down repeatedly with a strange fervor. As the sound of hammering echoed throughout the forge in a hidden corner of the school grounds, Erica still stood there waiting quietly for Sehun despite his self-forgetting enthusiasm. She stood nearby looking rather uninterested. Unha kept yawning, looking sleepy. She stood there with a tired and listless expression. 4 hours of forging had passed. The properties of the inkstone, after absorbing the flame to its limit, were beginning to change. He sighed in relief, thinking, "It's done. The deformation has stopped." He melted the processed inkstone and then poured it into the pre-prepared mold. The tired, listless look on Unha's face instantly vanished, replaced by a glance of utter astonishment. She thought to herself, "Model, casting instead of forging, but the properties will change because of the darkness deep within the mold." What on earth is he thinking? The 4th step? Sehun was about to begin the 4th step. Unha suddenly spoke up to stop him. "Wait." But despite her firm warning, he didn't stop at all. Right now, Sehun's mind was filled with nothing but numbers and structures. The flowing magic gradually slowed the transformations within the inkstone, using a formula to shatter the barrier and construct a magic circuit in that fleeting moment. Just as the magic circuit managed to form during the inkstone's brief transformation, everything suddenly fell silent, revealing the final product in Sehun's hand, an inkstone spider bracelet. It possessed a deep and somber black hue. The very moment the bracelet took its final shape, a mechanical sound shattered the silence as a system notification window suddenly appeared before him. Permanent item inkstone. Spider bracelet has been completed. 4. To shatter preconceptions, a bold challenge that spares no one is necessary. Though the material's potential wasn't fully extracted, the smith's skill in forging has created new possibilities worthy of being called first class. You have acquired the skill Black Soul Thread, Inkstone Spider Bracelet. Grade Rare, Quality Average. A bracelet crafted by forging heavy inkstone. It possesses the property of absorbing the wearer's magic, and its weight increases in proportion to the amount of that magic. Absorbs and stores the wearer's magic. Can also use the skill Burst Ring. In the dead silent space, Sehun let out a sigh of relief and whispered, "Success." Amidst the quiet atmosphere, Jungha's stomach let out a loud, insistent growl, as if declaring its hunger to the world. He froze, glancing over at her with a bewildered, speechless look. As she blushed in embarrassment and quickly covered her stomach as if to hide her body's betrayal, Sehun could only look up at the heavens and let out a helpless sigh as if he had just witnessed a legend crumbling before his very eyes. Let's observe it and form a subjective opinion. Could this be a resonance phenomenon? You're quite impressive. It looks simple, however, its power isn't that overwhelming. If we do this right, we could aim to create a set effect. He maintained a calm expression as if nothing had happened, and slowly held the item out to her. "I apologize that I am unable to present you with a weapon. while you are in trouble because of me. I'm not sure if this can be of any help, perhaps as a light snack to cleanse your palate, but at the very least, please accept it. Sehun said no more, just held his pose and gazed steadily at Young-ha. She took the item from Sehun's hand. Then she suddenly activated her unique skill Soul Forge. Young-ha took a small taste and then remarked, "This is actually quite tasty." He blurted out, Really?" She replied nonchalantly, "Yes, metaphorically speaking, of course. The flavor is like crispy fried bits." Sehun thought to himself with relief. What a relief. Have I developed a habit of making everything to Young-ha's taste? Perhaps it'll be easy to raise my bond level with her after all. He smiled faintly at Young-ha and said gently, "I'm glad you like it." She nodded in satisfaction and spoke up. "Of course, though it is a bit of a shame to have to eat this one, while those other items are just sitting there. By the way, when do you plan on dealing with the 5-colored blade and the flame-storing scabbard?" Sehun shook his head slightly, his eyes maintaining their characteristic calmness. As he replied, "I don't intend to sell them right now." Young-ha paused, her expression a mix of confusion and impatience, and pressed him. "I'm sorry, what do you mean? Is the price still not high enough?" He answered calmly, "I'm going to hold on to them to prepare for the conquest class." Sehun smiled to himself and thought, and besides, there's a saying that hunger is the best spice. He gave a slight nod as if making a promise and added, "Once I have equipment worthy of giving to you, I will let you know first." She blushed with embarrassment. Shaking off her awkwardness to regain her composure, she said, "I'll be looking forward to it." "So the forging is all done now, right?" He replied, "That's right." Young-ha then prompted, "Then let's get going. The staff will come to clean up." Sehun replied in a hoarse voice, "That's a relief. I don't have an ounce of strength left to clean." As he started walking, he suddenly felt dizzy and fell backward. She caught him in a panic. Young-ha asked worriedly, "Hey, are you all right?" He quickly collected himself and answered, Yes, I'm fine. I think I might have mismanaged my stamina a bit." She then offered, "Let me take you back to the dorm," or, "Are you afraid of heights?" Sehun answered decisively, "I'm not." Immediately, Young-ha swept him up in her arms, bridal style, catching him completely off guard. "Let's go." She planted one foot to brace herself. Young-ha powerfully launched herself into the air like a flash of lightning, still carrying him in her arms. Young-ha was circulating her power and thought to herself, "That mold I just ate. How can it draw out this much power?" While being carried by her hurtling through the air at a terrifying speed, Sehun could only resign himself to his fate and think, in many respects, "The current situation has changed a lot compared to before I returned to the past." Meanwhile, Erica was still waiting patiently on the school grounds for him. "Lee Sehun still hasn't shown up. I need to give him this invitation." On the free forum of the Babel Academy's metallurgy department, an anonymous user posted a picture of Erica asking, "Why is that girl here? Isn't she the top-ranked student from the combat department?" A flood of comments full of question marks followed. One person spoke up, saying she'd been standing motionless in front of the metallurgy department's main building for 3 hours now, shivering. That's when a bunch of people started replying to that comment. Could she be waiting for the top student of our department, the bow shipper? I saw her waiting for him at the dorms last time, too. Could it really be that simple? If that's the case, she could just call and tell him to come down. You idiot, I was just guessing. Am I not allowed to or something? Damn it. Sehun saw all of this, too. He felt helpless, wondering to himself, what the hell is going on? Sehun reassured himself, whatever. If it's really that important, they'll definitely find me again. Just then, the classroom door opened and a middle-aged man walked in. He introduced himself. "It's a pleasure to meet you all. Starting today, I will be in charge of the Understanding Tools class. My name is Ricardo Smile." He slammed his hand on the door to get everyone's attention and ordered, "First, everyone move to the training center. The last one there will be punished with 20 laps around the stadium go." As soon as Ricardo finished speaking, the students scrambled to their feet and bolted. Why are we suddenly being forced to run like this? Sehun was also tense amidst the crowd. Isn't this supposed to be a theory class? They kept grumbling, "I don't know either, just run for now." In the end, they all arrived. Ricardo punished Sehun, forcing him to run the full 20 laps. He replied calmly as he ran, "Yes, sir, I'm running." Seeing this, the people around couldn't stop gossiping. This guy's stamina is just rock bottom. I wonder if he even managed to properly pass the intermediate training. A while later, Ricardo came out and called, "All right, everyone listen up." He explained seriously. Initially, the Understanding Tools subject was designed to teach the theory behind the structure of various types of equipment. However, due to the recent fire sword huntings, we have to change our training methods. There have been attacks targeting blacksmiths capable of forging hero-grade fire swords or higher. Those attackers are called the Fire Sword Hunters. Listening as he ran, Se-hoon thought to himself, even before I turned back time, that case was never solved. Ricardo continued, no matter how solid your defense systems are, in the end, the only thing that can protect you is your own body. Ricardo raised his voice, instructing, therefore, in parallel with studying tools in this class, you will also be taught skills to protect yourselves. The students replied in unison. Yes, sir, Ricardo said with satisfaction. Very good. Today's topic will be the sword. Se-hoon was still telling himself, this time I need to be a little more careful. His feet kept moving. To do that, the top priority is to improve my own physical strength. Se-hoon's hand tightened slightly as he silently assessed, even though I made this myself. Aye, its effect is truly outstanding. A system window displayed the information. This is a bracelet forged from inkstone capable of absorbing the wearer's mana to increase its corresponding weight. It stores and draws upon the owner's mana, allowing the activation of the Burst Circle skill. The Burst Circle skill helps control gravity within a range of 1 meter around the user. Looking at the system's stat window, he set a goal for himself. My basic stats have all increased by an average of about 5 points. Before the first year is over, I absolutely have to make this body stronger, no matter the cost. After a while, Ricardo turned and called out, Se-hoon, stop running! Get over here! Se-hoon secretly glanced down at his hand. Burst ring. Ricardo was covertly assessing him. Your physical condition seems to be better than I thought. Ricardo held out a sword towards him and suggested, let's see if you have any aptitude for swordsmanship. Try swinging this sword. Se-hoon took it and observed it for a moment. It might be a bit hard to move freely because of the inkstone bracelet. He hesitated internally. It's not exactly a properly polished technique. But should I try using that move? Finally, Se-hoon made up his mind and swung the sword down. The students watching from the side immediately burst out laughing. So slow! He must be exhausted after finishing that run. Still, his striking posture doesn't look half bad, but Ricardo had a completely different assessment. No, it's actually excellent. The path of your sword seems to have a clear intended direction. He turned to comment. However, your pace is still too rushed. It would be best to correct that before continuing. In an instant, Se-hoon's gaze became sharp. Ricardo's entire body trembled. The space around him seemed to turn white. Ricardo's eyes froze as he stared bewildered at the sword pressed against his neck. Ricardo wondered to himself, Did I just feel fear from a tech student so much that it created such a terrifying illusion? Then he asked hesitantly, Who taught you that sword style? Se-hoon smiled faintly, but inwardly he was completely baffled. Why did that move even work? He said it was just a technique he made up. On the spot in 10 minutes, Se-hoon recalled some old memories from back then. Guangsu had scratched his ear and said, Hey, come on, I already told you I'd pay you back next time. Everyone falls on hard times now and then, you know. Why are you making such a fuss? He pleaded endlessly. How about a technique instead of money? Just one technique. I'll teach it to you, so please just back off. Back in the present. A flustered Se-hoon scratched his head and lied. I watch a lot of videos of other heroes fighting. Ricardo was unconvinced, but still smiled and asked, Your swordsmanship. Are you truly interested in receiving formal training? I will prepare a letter of recommendation for you to join the body control class at Aqua, he offered. That afternoon at the Aqua Center, Se-hoon stood bewildered in the middle of a crowd. Guangsu was stomping his foot in frustration. How many times do I have to tell you I have nothing left to teach you? But Jack wouldn't listen. Please, sir, don't treat me like this. He was a retired S-rank hero and a regular customer Guangsu, the man known as the Swordbreaker. Se-hoon found it a little hard to believe. This guy who's always drunk and gambling is a professor. Noticing his arrival, Guangsu asked, And who are you? Se-hoon presented the letter introducing himself. I'm Lee Se-hoon, a first year in the metallurgy department. I'm here on Professor Ricardo's recommendation. He asked, slightly surprised. Ricardo's the one who recommended you. Jack also scrambled to his feet and explained, That kid is the top student of the bow shipper department this year. He sized him up bluntly. No matter how I look at him, he seems incredibly ordinary. Guangsu questioned him. Hey you, do you really want to learn from me that badly? Yes, that's right, he affirmed enthusiastically. Hearing this, he pointed a finger at Se-hoon and proposed, All right then, if you can defeat that kid, I'll agree to accept you. He arranged a match for the two of them. It'll just be a single round. The first one to land a clean hit on their opponent wins. Guangsu waved his hand as a signal. All right, then the match begins. As soon as the words left his mouth, Jack charged forward while Sehun stood his ground, tightening his grip on his sword. Guangsu wondered with some suspicion. Is he relaxing to maximize his flexibility by eliminating all muscle tension? If that's the case, the most basic counter is to grapple, not go for a direct hit. At that moment, Jack swung his arm to attack. Guangsu sighed in frustration. This is exactly why I can't stand guys who like to show off. All they do is focus on mind games instead of having a proper fight, he grumbled. It's no fun at all. What a buzzkill. Right after that, Jack lunged forward and grabbed Sehun around the waist. He gritted his teeth in surprise. What is this monstrous strength? But Sehun thought to himself as he activated his skill explosion ring. Power erupted from it in a blinding flash of light. Sehun had successfully turned the tables. He hissed slightly in pain. Sehun's fist was hovering right in front of Jack's face. Blood dripped from his nose. Seeing this, he smiled faintly and asked, Looks like I was a little faster, wasn't I? The space quickly fell silent. A moment later, Jack finally spoke up. That last attack wasn't really... Before he could finish, Guangsu ordered, Everyone clear out now. I recall promising to teach you if you were the one to win. But hearing this, Sehun sat up and proposed, Since he lost to me, shouldn't you be teaching me instead, sir? He started to taunt him. To think the top student of Aqua lost to a student from the bow shipper department. Just hearing about it sounds pathetic. Beaten into a daze? Pathetic? Seeing this, Guangsu also spoke up with a suggestion. He does have a point. Perhaps I should whip this fool into shape a bit so he's strong enough to fend for himself, he thought. Jack turned to him enthusiastically. The man then told him, In that case, I'll arrange a time and send it to you. Make sure you're on time. This made Jack overjoyed. He bowed deeply and said, I sincerely thank you, teacher. Guangsu sighed in annoyance and waved his hand dismissively. If we're done, you can go now. Then he turned to Sehun and said, I still have a private matter to discuss with this kid. Once the two of them were alone, Guangsu instructed, Show me that sword technique you used to deal with Ricardos again. Sehun quickly complied. I understand. Sehun looked at him tensely, then lunged forward with his sharp blade in hand. However, in an instant, Guangsu knocked the sword right out of his hand. He stood there, stunned, as the man remarked, This is a move designed to defeat an opponent with the very first strike. Guangsu stated coldly, The idea itself is pretty good, but the execution is still very crude. Do you think it's normal for a sword technique to expose its weakness on just the second use? He scolded angrily. If anyone dared to teach this to someone and praise it as good, I'd personally break their arms and legs. But what Guangsu didn't know was that he was the very person who had taught it. Guangsu sighed and said, Just you watch. I'm going to build a complete form on top of this flimsy framework of a technique you have. Sehun casually asked in return, So, does that mean I'm officially enrolled in the class now? Is that right? Guangsu looked completely dumbfounded before confirming, Of course it is. Hearing that Sehun was relieved and said his goodbyes. In that case, I'll take my leave for today. After Sehun left, Guangsu glanced after him, musing, That kid is so rigid. After heading outside, Sehun sighed in annoyance. He acts so high and mighty even though it's basically just after sales service. Just then Jack came up to greet him. Hey you, Sehun replied in surprise. You haven't left yet. Then he took out a letter saying, I have something I'd like to give you. Sehun asked blankly, What is this? So he explained, It's an invitation to join Nobi. Basically, it's where students from prestigious families gather. Sehun had already realized this in his heart. Could it be that Erica planned to give this to me all along? Jack spoke up excitedly. There are a lot of arrogant jerks there, but I think this will be a good opportunity for you. However, Sehun was a bit hesitant. I'm not sure if I should just accept something like this. He smiled brightly and said, It's thanks to you that I even got into that class. So this is the least I can do to show my gratitude. Seeing that Sehun also smiled and said, Thanks. A while later, as he was walking, he silently reviewed his choices. The supplementary subjects I've signed up for so far are barrier construction and body control. I also want to try a subject from the combat department. Right now, I'm debating between curses, alchemy, and enchantment. Lost in thought, he accidentally bumped into someone. Sehun stopped and began to apologize. Sorry. His gaze suddenly froze. A girl had grabbed his wrist and was inspecting it. Did you make it yourself? Sehun stated flatly. So what if I did? Then she offered, How about I enchant it for you? The system quickly displayed a notification: a bond with the target, Leah Claudel, has been successfully established. Leah Claudel was someone who could upgrade equipment by a full 2 tiers through enchantment. A genius among geniuses who had crafted equipment of legendary status. The one nicknamed the person who revolutionized the entire enchantment industry. Leah cried out in astonishment. Inkstone, at the rare grade. She studied it non-stop. If I just add a few formulas right here... No, it's too incredible to leave it at this level. Leah clutched her head, exhausted. No, this won't do! How am I supposed to solve this difficult problem? Witnessing this scene, Sehun silently thought I didn't expect her to be this eccentric. Then he asked nonchalantly, Is there something wrong with the equipment? Leah quickly laid out the issue. The problem is that there's too much I want to do with it. It's forged from inkstone, so why is its compatibility so astonishingly high? Seeing her bewildered state, he reminded her, there's more. Sehun added carefully, It also has a resonance effect, so please pay attention to that. Leah, incredibly excited, asked, Just who in the world are you? He introduced himself nonchalantly. I'm Lee Sehun, a first year in the metallurgy department, and the top-ranked student in the combat department for the past 3 years. She was completely stunned, exclaiming, A first year? That's amazing. I am a 3rd year in the enchantment department. Just then, someone walked up, cutting their conversation short. I need to speak with you. Follow me for a moment. Sehun immediately recognized him. Isn't that Erica's lackey? Leah got up annoyed and snapped, Can't you see we were talking here? The guy finally lowered his voice and said, I want to handle this peacefully, so please give me a few minutes. Sehun coldly replied, If you have something to say, just say it here. The guy then sighed and said, Apologize for your rude attitude toward Miss Erica. You dared to tear up the invitation she gave you right in front of so many people. Sehun exclaimed, confused. But Miss Erica herself asked me to tear it up. His eyes immediately filled with anger as he scolded, Sure, you have your own excuses. If only you hadn't accepted the invitation from the Myers family. Sehun asked, annoyed, Did Erica send you here? He quickly denied it. No. This was entirely my own idea. Just then, Leah let out a sarcastic laugh. Yeah, right. She bluntly exposed him. Is there anyone who doesn't know you're the young master's trusted subordinate? This made him furious. How dare a failure like you? You must be delusional enough to think you're somebody now. He pointedly criticized Sehun, but Babel isn't short on geniuses who are way beyond your level. However, he didn't pay it any mind and retorted, When you say that, are you referring to yourself? Sehun's words struck him like lightning. The man roared in anger, Shut your mouth! Sehun watched his power erupt, but calmly held out his hand. With one hand, he was able to block the charging phantom beasts. As a stream of mana suddenly dissipated, he remarked, Just as I predicted, that thing wasn't created from pure mana alone. You used the short sword as a medium to attack, even though they were just illusions. This made the man stutter in fear. How could you? Sehun casually spun the weapon in his hand and replied, Who knows? He laughed with excitement and exclaimed, This looks pretty tasty. At the same time, the system also announced, The mark of the greedy Iron Link has been officially activated. The man exclaimed helplessly, My 1 million! It's gone! Sehun smirked and said, With a taste this exquisite, no wonder you go crazy for it. The system displayed more information. Link Greedy Iron Ingot, quality level supreme high. A type of iron capable of generating thermal energy by devouring other types of iron. It corrodes metals on contact and absorbs their cores into itself. It hunts and consumes iron to produce mineral blood. Remaining durability 78%. The circle exploded, and in the blink of an eye, Sehun lunged forward. He punched the man straight in the gut, and he collapsed on the spot. Sehun turned to call out to Leah. So, senior. He glanced at her and asked, Are there any lectures in the enhancement department that you'd recommend to me? Leah's face suddenly turned red, and she spoke up. Ancient enhancement. There's also a brilliant senior there named Leah Cluedo, you know. After he left, the man clutched his stomach in pain. Damn it! He grumbled nonstop. I can't believe it. A freshman with such incredible reflexes. Just then, Erica appeared from the front. Excuse me, I'd like to borrow that short sword for a moment. He jumped in surprise and yelled, Miss Erica, when have you been here? Then, the subordinate respectfully handed it to her. Here it is, miss. Erica looked at the sword in her hand and advised, You don't need to report this to my brother. As for the head of the family, I will speak to him personally later. The man scratched his head in confusion and replied, Yes, I understand. Erica thought to herself, As I expected an item used as a conduit, it's been engraved with an anti-theft seal. She felt a bit bewildered. Could it be that he on his own created a counter-skill based on his magic and Professor Roberts? Erica began to feel uncertain. Lee Se-hoon, his talent for smithing techniques might even surpass S-Rank. I'll definitely have to adjust my evaluation of his magic compatibility up to A-Rank. The system suddenly appeared. A link with the target named Erica Yuno has been established. This confused Se-hoon. What's going on? He began to speculate. Was she secretly watching when I fought that subordinate? Se-hoon held the blades in his hand, feeling helpless. Well, at least I got some decent compensation. I'm still short by 10 blades, huh? It's a bit crude like this, but if I combine it with the black spirit thread, it should work just fine. He yawned and sighed, putting that aside for now. I was really looking forward to Professor Kim Incheon's class, but I didn't expect to spend the whole day listening to boring theories I already know by heart. Right after that, Incheon spoke seriously. That's enough explanation. Now let's get to this main part. He picked up the item on the desk and explained, even if you all use the exact same type of metal, its form will change completely depending on how you adjust the arrangement of your mana. A stone suddenly appeared along with his words. The ability to apply this metal deformation technique is the deciding factor in a weapon's versatility. He placed different stones on the table. Then Incheon returned it to its original iron color and stated, therefore, if you've chosen the path of a blacksmith, you must perfectly grasp the potential of the metal you are handling. Incheon presented the task for the day. In today's class, we will practice deformation techniques on these iron ingots. He had someone distribute the stones and then gave his instructions. First, use your mana flow to create a scratch approximately 3 centimeters deep, right in the center of the iron ingot. This material has been refined to be extremely sensitive to deformation, so you all must work very carefully. Se-hoon thought to himself. It seems he doesn't completely dismiss magic-based forging methods after all. Incheon clearly announced, the time limit is 10 minutes. You may all begin now. The students were completely bewildered holding the iron ingots. Why is this happening to me? Everyone kept grumbling. It won't go back to its original shape. Just then, 2 people stepped forward. Se-hoon spoke calmly. I have finished. Han glanced over at him and reported, I'm finished as well, sir. Incheon praised them with satisfaction. Very good. You 2 may proceed to the next training phase. He then introduced another challenge. I will now demonstrate a different arrangement pattern. All of you try to replicate it. Han glanced at Se-hoon full of confidence. My speed and the quality of my work are on par with his. This time I'll definitely win. Incheon continued his explanation. Next up is the arrangement based on this diagram. He hastily began brimming with confidence. My chance is finally here, Han thought gleefully. I'll complete it perfectly and leave everyone in awe. However, after he finished, Incheon made a request. Han Bamut, try returning that ingot to its original state. Han was momentarily stunned and asked, I'm sorry, Professor, what was that? As he tried, he grew flustered. Oh, why did it turn out like this? Han realized with a sense of helplessness that the arrangement of the magical currents had been completely destroyed. Seeing this, Incheon spoke up. That ingot could not withstand the deformation you just performed. In other words, that proves your method was flawed from the very first step. Han asked in confusion. But I did exactly what you demonstrated, Professor. He lowered his head and explained, what I stressed earlier was that you must have a complete understanding of the metal's inherent potential. Incheon continued his critique. If you can't restore the affected mana structure, it's no longer considered deformation. It's a severe degradation of the equipment. That becomes a major variable affecting both quality and performance. You need to study this section more carefully from now on. After listening, Han bowed his head and replied, I will take your teachings to heart, sir. He then glanced at Se-hoon, wondering, I wonder if that guy actually realized the crucial point. In the end, he concluded, no way. He probably just got lucky while he was spacing out. However, right after that, Se-hoon succeeded. It actually worked. He returned the ingot to its original state, leaving all the students bewildered. What? But didn't the professor just say that was impossible? That can't be right. Even Incheon was bewildered. Student Lee Se-hoon, would you please perform that deformation technique you just used? For me, one more time. Se-hoon thought helplessly, I think I've accidentally caused a misunderstanding. He explained sheepishly, this is only possible because it's a special type of iron that's been specifically adjusted for students. With a normal standard ingot, this would definitely be impossible. Watching everything unfold, Incheon came to a realization. So that's it. He was able to do it because of the responsive properties of this refined ingot. He mused thoughtfully To think that even I overlooked such a crucial detail. The one who conquered the summit and the greatest blacksmith of all, the Saint of Flames, Lee Kens. He created it during his years as an S-rank hero, and in the many decades that have passed since then, no one has ever been able to refute it. The deformation formula considered the core principle for every blacksmith in the world, the truth of steel. Thinking this, Incheon hesitated. Surely he couldn't have discovered a different method, right? Should I believe that such a thing is possible for this boy? Sehun turned away, thinking to himself, if he figures it out again this time, it'll be the second time in a row. As it grew dark outside, Incheon announced, classes dismissed for today. You are all dismissed. Student Lee Sehun, could you stay behind for a moment? I'd like to speak with you. He stopped in his tracks and asked, Professor, is something wrong? Incheon took out an item and began, This is a gift to congratulate you on your admission. You were a great help to me during my move to Babel. A system window displayed its information. Rare grade. High quality. Crimson Flame. An ore containing the essence of the Crimson Flame. It possesses a special ability for smelting various types of ores into a liquid state. Sehun hesitated slightly, so he elaborated. If you can absorb the essence from this flame ore, you will permanently strengthen your own Crimson Flame. I went to great lengths to prepare it after hearing you could control the Crimson Flame. Upon hearing this, he happily nodded and began to speak. Thank you very much, Professor. This gift will certainly be a tremendous help to me. Incheon suddenly spoke up to ask, there is one more thing I'd like to ask. I wanted to see if you intend to register for the elective course that I personally teach. He calmly replied, Are you by any chance referring to the Basic Equipment Studies course, Professor? This surprised Incheon a little. Ah, so you know about that course, Sehun affirmed nonchalantly. Yes, sir, I do. In his heart, he silently assessed that it was one of the classes Babeo had invested the largest budget in. Sehun was a bit lost. What should I do now? Before I traveled back in time, I had never heard the name Kim Incheon, so it's very likely that the ending for this professor wasn't a very good one. However, right now, he's a professor who's receiving a lot of attention. Then Sehun spoke up cheerfully. I've decided to join the course, sir. Incheon asked with concern, Are you sure you'll be all right? I see you've already signed up for quite a few electives. But he calmly explained, Even with this one, it's only my 4th elective, sir. Incheon didn't press the matter, shaking Sehun's hand and exclaiming, Well then, I very much look forward to working with you. He politely replied, Me too, sir. At that same moment, a system notification appeared, now extracting link from target Kim Incheon. Link with creator Lee Sehun is currently at level 1. Link Intron Fire-Bearing Iron. High-grade, low-mid quality. A type of metal that contains fire within it. It possesses properties nearly identical to wood, with the ability to store flames inside. Sehun pondered to himself, if a person can extract metal from another's body, it means they can also forge, file, and temper the human body itself. When multiple types of elemental mana exist in one body, they will conflict with each other, which is extremely dangerous. For a blacksmith who requires absolute precision, using only the single element that best suits one's aptitude has become an unwritten rule. However, I am a completely different case. The internal mana used to suppress the heat is being appropriately depleted. Once a body is depleted of mana, it will begin to draw in the essence of the Crimson Flame. What I need to do as a blacksmith is to establish a circuit. A mana circuit specialized for the Crimson Flame right inside my own body. A moment later, Sehun breathed a sigh of relief. He understood that only by doing this could I perform forging within myself. The system announced, Your elemental mana has been strengthened from Bloodfire rank AF to Bloodfire rank E+. A series of notifications rang out. You have learned the S-rank skill, Soul Forging Magic. The body is the most primitive material a blacksmith can polish. As the internal mana circuits are forged, physical abilities will increase and power will be enhanced. All basic stats have increased significantly. Due to the skill's effect, Lee Sehun, Strength D15, Durability D100, Mana D19, Agility E87. Sehun gritted his teeth and thought, Soul Forging Magic. He remembered how he had struggled in his past life when LEA questioned him. You have the materials right in your hands, yet you're going to give up without even thinking of how to handle them. She had laughed, asking probingly, You're not an idiot. Are you really going to just accept that? Returning to the present, he smiled, satisfied, and made his resolve. That's right, I absolutely have to make full use of everything I possibly can. And regardless of whether they are an ally or an enemy this time, I will not let myself regret a single thing. In a large, stone-paved building, a voice rose. Odd. Today we will be completing the items that you all have been creating in the past few classes because these finished products are scheduled to be supplied both inside and outside the academy. The red-haired man stood before everyone with his hands on his hips. So I can say for certain that today's results and will decide the entire outcome of this first semester. Therefore, all of you give it your all so you have no regrets later. Do you understand? Everyone shouted in unison, "Yes, sir!" Sehun observed the iron bar in his hand, thinking, everything is a real mess. My current body can't keep up with my reflexes. So a lot of the details are off. Holding a hammer in one hand, he thought, this is no time for me to be taking it easy. Flames erupted. Waves of fire slashed through the place. A pot of water boiled steaming. Sehun held the long iron bar quietly, observing it. This result is probably acceptable. But he seemed to grow anxious, thinking, with the time remaining, finishing the other items will be extremely difficult. If I just make everything at an average level, I might get more funding. He placed it on the whetstone. But in the end, pouring my heart and soul into creating at least one truly high-quality item is the right thing to do. His hands moved nimbly, grinding the iron bar. He stood there completely focused. That sound swelled in Sehun's head, a sound like the apocalypse was approaching. His hands moved nimbly, grinding the iron bar. He stood there completely focused. That sound swelled in Sehun's head, a sound like the apocalypse was approaching. All his concentration was poured into it with the thought, this isn't merely a temporary sharpness, but a blade carved into its very being. A light flashed from below, named White Light. The information appeared more clearly. Weapon White Light Longsword has finally been completed. A great blacksmith always reveals their will through the most basic of things. The technique of an artisan who knows how to extract a material's maximum potential, to forge a new blade truly worthy of being called the best. A notification appeared. You have acquired the skill named White Light Style C. 2 gleaming swords materialized along with their information. White Light Longsword. Rarity rare. Quality high. This is a longsword possessing a pure, pristine white blade. The blade is exquisitely sharpened, combined with a unique mana arrangement. This makes it both incredibly durable and sharp. A masterpiece created by a blacksmith of outstanding skill. Its slashing power increases when infused with mana. Sehun held the newly crafted weapon, let out a breath, and thought, considering I only used ordinary iron, this result is acceptable. He felt a glimmer of hope as he looked at the weapon. My skills from before I reversed time are slowly coming back, even if it's just a little bit. The 2 knights standing behind him held their swords with worried looks. One after another, they whimpered, I really hate this feeling. Maybe I should consider dropping out, huh? The following Saturday morning, as the red-haired guy was sitting at a cafe focused on his phone, a voice spoke up. I really didn't expect you'd want to witness my reinforcement technique. Sehun was looking around as they walked. Well, to be honest, I'm also quite curious about your basic skills. It seems pretty crowded around here, doesn't it? Leah, walking beside him, was also observing. Don't worry too much. My workplace is in a much quieter area. The 2 of them were on their way to a peaceful farm area when he asked, isn't this place a little too far out? Did you think you could just see my technique up close that easily? She pulled him into the Aqua Metalworks shop. This is the place. She stepped inside and called out loudly, Grandma? Her voice echoed. I'm here. Helena, who was sitting inside, cleaned her ear with her pinky finger and scowled. I'm not deaf, you don't have to shout like that. Sehun, following behind, seemed annoyed when she asked, Who's the kid with you, your boyfriend? Leah stood in front of him and answered, Of course not. A small smile finally appeared on his face as she said, He's the top student from Balder's department who just enrolled this year. The old woman replied, Balder must be in its decline. To accept a kid who looks as frail as this. Then Helena propped herself up from the table with her hands. The name's Helena. Sehun then spoke up. I'm Lee Sehun, a freshman in the Department of Metallurgy. She seemed to flare up. All right, enough with the idle chit-chat. Let's get to work quickly. This week's workload has piled up a lot because of all the new students. Leah glanced away and sighed. Yes, I know. The old woman pointed to the room behind her. The entrance to the forge is this way. Looking at the items in the room made Sehun think, that grandmother? Her skills seem even deeper than I thought. He followed behind, observing carefully, thinking, I really can't understand why someone like her would be running a metalwork shop. And in a place like this. Walking ahead, she picked up various items, muttering, the work really has piled up. A colorful tray was placed on the table. This is the reinforcement pallet. And these are powders ground from magic stones. He stood there with his arms crossed, glancing over and thinking, I know the standard is 8 colors, but she's using them in such a diverse way. Then he spoke up. Is your job to restore damaged reinforcement formulas using this? Helena picked up a paintbrush. Exactly. With a pan in one hand and a brush in the other, she dipped it into the palette. Thanks to this, I can make money while also practicing reinforcement to my heart's content, without having to worry about material costs. The colorful strokes shone from the bottom of the pan, which had become far more impressive in her hands than it would be normally. Sehun stood there observing in silence. He thought, I came here because it seemed like she was hitting a plateau in her work. He recalled a memory of someone standing before him saying, a has-been who fails every exam and can't even hold on to the top spot in his own department. The image of Helena focused on her brush and pan sparked a thought in his mind. Sure enough, seeing it with my own eyes, I think I figured out the cause of her stagnation and how to solve it. With these thoughts in mind, he turned and walked away. To be able to immerse yourself in your work like that, it's a talent in itself. With his hands in his pockets, he stood before a wooden table. An item on it caught Sehun's eye. This will resonate with the mana arrangement to create a special effect. He lowered his head to get a closer look. Anyway, it's been a long time since I've engraved a white light. My hands are itching to do something. Helena, seeing him from behind, said, Go on, try using it. She stood behind him, frowning. Of course, that's if you have the skill to do it. Just pick any item you want from that pile over there. He glanced back in surprise, thinking, It feels like she's deliberately trying to order me around. He turned his head back to look. If I'm allowed to use a special whetstone of that quality, then I definitely have to give it a try. His eyes were locked onto it. His hand grabbed its handle. The old woman stood behind him, arms crossed, observing. Are you really going to work on that item? Sehun excitedly touched the blade of the knife. That's right. Looking at the way the blade is evenly worn and the axis isn't twisted at all, you can tell this is the knife of someone who truly understands how to use a blade. He stood before the table holding the whetstone, deep in thought. With this kind of whetstone, its magic particles are compressed so evenly. If I use this, it should be strong enough to handle sharpening the blade to its absolute limit. With a gentle and skilled hand, he placed the knife on the whetstone. Standing behind him, a big question formed in Helena's mind. Is that kid really a freshman who just enrolled this year? It's all done! Leah shouted excitedly from behind, making her jump. She started only now realizing she was there. Oh, ma'am, when did you get here? Without turning around, she replied, I don't even know myself, honestly, this girl. She walked up beside her and glanced over. You were intentionally trying to find fault with the junior, but he ended up teaching you a lesson instead, didn't he? Helena shoved her back. Angrily, she said, Just be quiet, will you? She looked over at the hesitant Sehun. Are you finished? He smiled and replied, For now, this is the best I can do. I'll definitely do better next time. Helena brought the sword down hard. All right. In that case, the two of you should get going. Leah linked her arm with his as they walked out, glancing back inside. She's just being grumpy for no reason, let's go. Back inside. She was standing with her hands on her hips right where he had been working when suddenly a man in a sharp suit banged on the door. Hey, forging something in there. Helena peeked out, scowling. Keep it down, would you? He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. We've got a huge backlog of orders, so how is that kitchen knife coming along? How much more of that man's nagging will it take for you to finally quit that restaurant job? Someone who should be a professor in the combat department. She snapped back irritably. Stop nagging me about my hobbies. He walked in and picked up the knife from the table. Ah, here it is. Suddenly, he sensed something unusual. He frowned and turned to look. Hey, you didn't drink while sharpening this again, did you? She stood there, arms crossed, head bowed. I did no such thing. He continued. Then I suppose this is the work of those new assistants you've been so friendly with lately. Their skills must have improved by leaps and bounds. Helena kept her head down with her eyes closed. It was a freshman. He turned around, not believing his eyes. What? She opened her eyes as she replied. A kid from the new class who just enrolled this year was the one who sharpened it. Remembering the image of Sehun, he thought, who the hell is that guy anyway? Sehun went outside and immediately asked, That old lady at the metalworks shop. She used to be a lecturer in the metallurgy department. Leah, walking beside him, replied, That's right. I heard she retired 5 years ago and came to Aqua to open this shop. He glanced down at her. Is there some hidden story behind that? She glanced over. I'm not sure. It's probably nothing too special. An image of the academy appeared as she spoke. Within the last 5 years, Quite a few professors have left the metallurgy department. He looked over at her and replied, "Oh, is that so?" Inside, Sehun couldn't stop thinking, considering this place will become the weakest department at Babel in the future, this is clearly a story that I can't afford to ignore. Leah, walking beside him, placed a hand on her chest. More importantly, what did you think of my enhancement technique? He was startled and looked down at her. The fundamentals are definitely flawless. It was pretty good. Her face filled with pride. Oh, please, that was nothing. Suddenly, he spoke with some interest. However, your way of thinking is still too narrow. The sky seemed to darken as Leah jumped to stand in front of him. What did you just say? Sehun pointed straight at her. You've already thought of more optimal methods, but you don't dare to apply them. She stammered in reply. How could you possibly know that? Leah seemed to fall into a depression, her head bowed as she listened to his critique. If you don't know something, you can learn it, but if you already know and still can't do it, then that's the real problem. A craftsman's imagination is their weapon and their gift, yet you're suppressing it yourself. Everything seemed to shatter inside her. It's as if you think I do these things just because I don't know any better. Sehun winked, sighed, and rummaged for something in his coat. He then pulled out a sword, surprising her. I have other plans, so I can't demonstrate for long. Focus and watch carefully. He then took a rock from the water as an example. Let's say someone asks you to place a stone underneath the surface of the water. Creating the stone and dropping it is the blacksmith's job. The image of it slowly faded. But capturing the image of that sinking stone on the water's surface, that is the art of enhancement. That's why enhancement always carries within it the nature of dreams. A sword appeared with red light swirling around it. Blood fire. The sword flew before her, much to her surprise, with power coiling around it. White light sword technique. Its powerful form materialized. Don't just affect the outer shell, but bestow that enhancement deep into the weapon's core. He observed the dagger in his hand as power swirled around it. If one layer isn't strong enough, then break it down into multiple layers. Sehun's hand swiped it down forcefully. When you do it this way, he stood there and threw it hard behind him. It landed perfectly straight, stabbing into the ground. Everything seemed to pause for that path of power. He looked down, thinking seriously, while I can't claim this is a standard enhancement technique for someone like Leah. He watched her bring a hand to her chin. It strengthened his thought that geniuses like her tend to find their own way, even when they're hesitating. Suddenly, Leah panicked, pointing behind him. Junior, let me borrow that for a moment. Please let me borrow it. She ran up to him, shaking him back and forth. I promise I'll perfect it and then give it back. Please, oh please. He started sweating and had to hand the item over. I don't mind, but if you're taking that, take this as well. She leaped for joy as if she had just received a love confession. Thank you so much, I love you to death. She vanished, leaving him standing there all alone. Sehun breathed a sigh of relief as a notification appeared, establishing a link with the subject Leah Claudel. Link level with creator Lee Sehun is now at level 1. He muttered aloud, that girl is still such a kid. Standing in a crowded campus area, Sehun looked around thinking, so today's the day I finally get to meet one of those 3 hounds. I remember every epic battle between the Mad Dog and the light-devouring demon god from our youth. Back then, Erica following behind me made me think, but what was more important was... Then I finally spoke up and asked her what she was doing. She whispered menacingly, I'm just following you, that's all. I replied nonchalantly. So if I told you to go somewhere else right now, would you... She moved up to stand beside me. Of course I would. Because I can just watch you from a distance. Sehun glanced back, letting out a sigh. I figured you'd do that. He started walking. Come on, let's go inside. An item like frozen snow appeared with the description, Social Contract of Erica Eno Bound. Rarity rare. Quality low to medium. Type refined mana-infused artificial ore. It helps regulate chaotic mana within when mixed with other minerals. Another magic stone also appeared with a notification Laws Complex Burst Block Bound. Claudel. Rarity rare. Quality superior. A sharp multicolored ore. It serves as an excellent amplifier, helping to unlock the maximum potential of mixed materials. On the large screen at the vast stadium grounds, Jang appeared with a lovely expression. A warm welcome to all the new students of Babel Academy to our prestigious touring location. The martial arts arena, I send my sincerest greetings to all of you in this ranking match. She posed and winked on screen. I am the youngest professor in the martial arts department, and I'll be your commentator for today. My name is Zhang Fang. As the light shone down, her voice continued to ring out. Well then, without further ado, let's introduce today's fighters. The tall figure of a woman appeared under the spotlight. First, let's look over to this side. The top fourth-year student of the Aqua sector and the future successor to the Myers family, a clan that specializes in training S-Rank heroes. This person brushed her shimmering golden hair back with her hand. A perfect superhuman who has continuously broken records and held the #1 spot at the martial arts arena for the past 3 years, she is currently an active A-rank hero. Yay, and she is our champion. The girl's beautiful face was revealed. And also the Sword Saint, the last person to successfully conquer the highest peak of the Hero's Tower. Arya Myers. Loud cheers erupted. Up above, Sehun and Erica were watching with their arms crossed. Sis, take me with you, Arya, you're shining too brightly. Along with Jang's introduction.
Sure.
And the first challenger to dare stand against our champion today. The light shone down again on a man with a long sword on his back, an intangible cultural heritage of Korea. The heir to the Hwaryun Tantwa spear technique, the top third-year student of the spearmanship department, and a strong contender for the 10th rank in the martial arts arena. Sehun looked down, thinking, so we finally meet. The man stood there, revealing his power. The mad dog Jang shouted his name as well. Eon Seong-ha. Every fiery slash of his sword stopped just before hitting the ground. Arya on the other side also skillfully controlled her sword. She launched an attack that sent him leaping backward. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself up. His hand gripped the wooden railing beside him tightly. Arya's eyes glinted menacingly as flames swirled in a circle around her. It looked like they wanted to attack Seong-ha directly. This made Sehun, who was watching from above, think, even accounting for his young age, he still doesn't meet the necessary standard. Could it be that he's not receiving support worthy of his title as the successor to the Hwaryun Tantwa spear? Seong-ha's hand moved back into a stance. There are quite a few things that feel off to me, but the biggest obstacle is the equipment he's using. But he threw it aside and prepared to charge forward. A long, sharp sword thrust just missed his neck. Seong-ha seemed bewildered by the blade at his throat. Then his expression darkened. I've lost. Arya held the sword in front of him cheerfully. You fought well. The official match has ended. The final winner is Arya Myers. The two of them stood on the same stage as Jang, holding a mic on the other side, continued her job. Next, we will proceed with the interview portion, with both fighters as scheduled. However, student Eon Seong-ha had to leave early due to an urgent matter. She covered her mouth with her hand and laughed. Having to face the 9th rank right after this is honestly too much even for me. Seong-ha quietly left as all the lights focused on Arya. Perhaps I'll fill this empty time with a live Q&A with yours truly. Up in the stands, the audience was extremely enthusiastic. We agree. Up above, Sehun glanced over thinking, that guy looks really upset. He suddenly stood up, causing Erica to turn to him. Are you going to waste your ticket and not watch until the end? He put his hands in his pockets and replied, yeah, I'm not really a fan of that fighting style. As he walked away, he said, look at her. She seems pretty antsy standing over there, doesn't she? Erica turned, looking somewhat worried, thinking, I'm so relieved to know you didn't come here. To meet your brother. But why does he look so angry? Suddenly a voice spoke up next to her. An interesting new student, perhaps? Arya was already standing there looking back. Her orange eyes looked back hopefully. Perhaps I've finally found someone like that. Eon Seong-ha was meditating in a park near the martial arts arena. Sehun approached quietly, thinking, the current Eon Seong-ha is still alive and quite well. Seong-ha was thinking back to when he unleashed those flashy displays of power. Even though his personality was a bit dog-like, he was still a core member of the Death Squad, and he was the last one to sacrifice his life to destroy the demon god of the Sea of Annihilation. He stood behind him thinking because he hasn't become too corrupted yet. Maybe this time I'll be able to get the Link Stone more easily. Meanwhile, he was frowning with his head down. You were just watching the practice match, weren't you? Sehun, with his hands in his pockets, replied, that's right. I watched a little. He tilted his head back slightly. The fact that you could find me here proves you're not half bad yourself. Seong-ha turned to look at him menacingly. It's you again. Why is the top student of the post-shipper department showing up here? He stood there worried, thinking, why is he being so aggressive? Then he spoke up. I came here, hoping the two of us could talk a little. But he turned his head away. Now get out of my sight. Sehun slowly stepped forward. This will really benefit you, you know. Senior, it's just... But he had already crouched down and replied, You probably still don't get it, so I'll only say this once. I absolutely despise the weak. He stood in front of him, especially those who can't do anything for their own family and those who mistakenly believe that their petty little tricks can put them on my level, so whatever it is you want to talk about, just turn around and leave. His words left him stunned. You low-class blacksmith? He remembered what Zeon Ha had done in the past. Go back to your workshop and forge equipment. Know your own limits and stay in your place. This didn't make him think too much about it. Compared to the era when he was known as the Mad Dog, he seemed quite polite now. Se-hun was already casting a spell in his hand. He thought to himself, looking at that attitude. I know for a fact that this can't be resolved with words. Zeon Ha also glanced back. It seems you're determined not to stop, huh? He approached him as he was casting the spell and said, Let me tell you one thing. The things that came next left him speechless. The history of the Hwaryun of the Remnant Fire Spear will be ended by your own hands. Because of that, Zeon Ha shot forward like a blur, his fist clenched as he unleashed his power. His punch was thrown at Se-hun. It was blocked by his power. A notification appeared at the same time he was knocked back. The link seal of slaughterous greed has been officially activated. A notification appeared at the same time. As he was knocked back, the link seal of slaughterous greed had been officially activated. He frowned in confusion, thinking, did he just nullify a punch? That was enhanced with my magic power. Flames coiled around Zeon Ha as he focused his thoughts on him. As expected of the top student of the department, perhaps after all he is worthy of speaking with me. His attitude became more intense. But the trajectory of the Remnant Fire's magic power still lingers. This is the true power of the Hwaryun of the Remnant Fire Spear. It all ends right here. The two of them flew straight towards each other. Se-hun created what looked like a blaze just to throw fire at Zeon Ha. The smoke billowed, obscuring him, and then he slowly emerged from it. In the distance, he was somewhat surprised. What? How can the flames which should only react to my magic be held in his hands? Don't tell me. Something terrifying was approaching. Did he separate it and steal it? Suddenly a flame shot it past his neck. He looked forward and thought, this bastard. Zeon Ha, with his purple power, struck a fighting pose, making him think, he looks like he's about to go crazy and lose control. The image of a pink-haired man carrying a weapon on his shoulder in front of the disaster gate at Hua Gate. Perhaps it all started because of this hot-headed personality. A punch from the man was about to be thrown. It flew with deadly accuracy. The intended victim thought, the effect of slaughterous greed is about to disappear and my stamina has reached its limit. Just as the fist was about to hit Se-hun's face, the duration of slaughterous greed ran out. My body can't hold on any longer. He fell as if losing gravity from a great height. At the same time, he caught Zeon Ha's punch, completely stunning him. But no, it was Jack straining to get in between and block the punch. It startled him. Jack Myers? He immediately spoke. You know this top student from the post-shipper department. He stammered in reply, Yes, we sort of know each other. After that, he pulled his hand back. He walked away, becoming more somber. Get out of here, now. Jack nervously shouted, Yes, sir. Then he turned and said to Se-hun, Let's get going. He was glaring at him, his face pale with fear. Engrave what I've said into your mind. And don't you dare spout such strange words again. Now hurry up and get out of here. Over there, Zeon Ha stood alone with his thoughts. I couldn't control my emotions and threw a punch just now. I was so close to tarnishing the honor of the Hwaryun of the Remnant Fire Spear and bringing disaster upon my master. His gaze fell downwards. On the street, Jack was walking ahead of him. What the hell were you thinking, picking a fight with that senior? If I hadn't stepped in, you might have actually been killed. Se-hun lowered his head with a sigh of relief. Me. It wouldn't have been that easy. Beside him, he worriedly said, What did you say? A notification appeared before his eyes. A link with the target. Link with Yeon-seongha has been successfully established. What I said earlier, I was just threatening him, that's all. But the next step appeared in my thoughts, extracting the link stone. I thought of Yeon-seongha's fierce fighting style, however. The person I once knew was, to be precise, the mad dog Yeon-seongha. If he's still this soft right now, the effectiveness of the link stone might be altered. I need to figure out a way to increase the link level with Yeon-seongha. He then looked over at Jack, thinking, still this guy looks like he could be very useful. He also asked if his hand was injured. He beamed, pointing to the wound on his palm. It's nothing. My hands are naturally tough. Se-hun, walking beside him, glanced over and thought, tough hands. How ridiculous. Jack turned to him and, more importantly, held out his hand assertively. "What did you say about my sister back at the arena?" He was a bit surprised. "You mean Arya Myers?" He replied, "That's right." Sehun then answered, "It's nothing serious. I just thought she was a little arrogant, that's all." Jack clutched his head in utter terror. "What? No wonder she kept grilling me about you." Sehun stood there thinking about Arya. "She's definitely started to notice you." Sehun's expression turned cold as he recalled the woman they were talking about. "My sister seems to have taken an interest in you." The sister in question, Arya, was smiling. He let out a helpless sigh. In a crowd this noisy, and she still heard that, "Damn, she's got sharp ears." Jack tried to reason with him. "Next time, please, just don't. My sister is a hero who's reached level, well, you know." Sehun, hands in his pockets, spoke mockingly. "Actually, if it's just simple interest, I'd be more than happy to accept it." He glanced over at the dejected Jack, who was running his hands through his hair in frustration as a thought occurred to Sehun. "Yeonsongha's greatest concern is probably defeating Arya. If I can attract the attention of his rival, my own influence will naturally grow." Jack, with a weary expression, let out a sigh. "Don't take this so lightly." "You don't understand. My sister really is—" Before he could finish, Sehun cut in bluntly. "A petty and conniving person, right?" Jack flinched reflexively. He glanced around nervously. "Oh, well, maybe you shouldn't use such strong words." Suddenly, Sehun's face grew solemn, and he fell silent when Jack asked, "But why do you resent my sister so much?" The woman with golden hair and a suit of armor, wielding a powerful black sword. The sword. Saint Arya Myers. She stood like an emperor facing the monsters head-on. This, too, was once a soulless and faint sword. Under the deep black moonlight, Arya spread her wings and raised that sword to the heavens. One day, that sword saint suddenly vanished without a trace, and the one who appeared afterward was the one who had turned the corpse of a demon god into his own weapon. The demon god of extinction, Sehun. In the darkness, he gave a faint, blurry smile. Just looking at her face spells trouble. After that, he just casually strolled away. He gave a careless wave. "I'm out of here." Jack stood stunned behind him, still not understanding what had just happened. Then he suddenly noticed the sound from his phone. On his screen was a message from his sister, Arya Myers. "It seems you've made a new friend. A very interesting one. Tell me all about it later, okay?" After reading it, he jumped in shock. "Does she mean I have to be the bridge between those two from now on?" Suddenly his eyes froze. He turned pale. Arya sent another message, as if with a sinister implication. "Your petty and conniving older sister is asking you for a little favor." Jack stood alone and haggard on the street, reading the message. Damn it. Scene changed to the next morning in a lecture hall at Babel Academy, where Sehun was sitting in class. He placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling a sharp pain. "Did I overdo it a little yesterday, confronting Yeonseongha?" Han, sitting at the desk in front, parted his lips to speak. "The schedule for the exchange event will be decided soon." Reese, holding a staff, burst into the classroom on a tiny vehicle and yelled, "Everyone settle down." He moved to the front of the class, staff in hand. Then he introduced himself all at once. "My name is Reese Dova. I'll be in charge of your specialized classes for the next 2 weeks. My lessons will revolve around attribute refinement." The students in that room all turned pale upon seeing him. They shared a single thought. This was the professor renowned for being an absolute madman. Chris Dova, however, spoke calmly and seriously. "Before we begin the lesson, I have an announcement. You must all make the most of this opportunity and turn in your homework to me by next Thursday. First up, David." Hearing his name, David jumped and replied, Yes, sir, I'm here." The tiny Reese Dova, holding a piece of paper, sat comfortably on his vehicle. "And the last person on the list is Lee Sehun." Hearing his name called, he stood up. Han, sitting in front, glanced back. "I wonder how much money he's going to get." The person sitting next to him had a similar thought. "I have a feeling the amount he's getting will be at least 3 times more than mine." Chris Dova suddenly announced in a loud voice, "As for student Sehun's budget," it hasn't been officially announced yet. When he heard that, he jumped in surprise and said, "What was that, sir?" He had intentionally let his hair fall down to cover his eyes, just because people kept criticizing his old hairstyle for being too outdated and ugly. Chris Dova was very calm, even raising a hand to stroke his white beard. "Because the level of completion in the product you submitted was so outstanding, far exceeding our expectations. The school has decided to enter it into the public auction. It's for second-year students and will be held this Wednesday." He continued to explain the reason. "We will base your budget on the final bidding price, so please be patient for a little while longer." Sehun stood there frowning in thought. Could this be a ploy by Vice Principal Michael? Is he deliberately intervening to handle this separately? His mind was still absorbed in thinking about it. But on second thought, if there was anything shady going on, Professor Kim In-chin would have surely stepped in to stop it by now. He then spoke up in response to the professor. I understand the situation completely, sir. Christova, looking quite approachable, beckoned him to pay attention as he began the next lecture. The topic we will be studying today is residual mana. We have an outstanding student who has volunteered to assist me in this intensive practical session. Please come in. That person was Yeon Seonha. He revealed himself stepping into the classroom as Christova introduced him. Everyone, this is my temporary teaching assistant, Yeon Seonha, a third-year spearmanship major at Aqua University. A student sitting next to Sehun exclaimed in surprise, "Why is that famous senior suddenly here?" Everyone in class is getting as excited as if they just saw a pretty girl. Yeon Seonha stood right next to the professor, who continued with the lecture. That's enough for introductions. Let's grasp the basic concepts before moving on to the practical application of the circular mana-emitting samples used in weapon crafting. The forms of residual mana are mainly divided into two types. The first is the basic charging type, and the second is the independent type, which can generate its own mana or absorb it from the surrounding atmosphere. Both have their own pros and cons, but the independent type is much more difficult to create. Christova explained the theory in a serious tone. The reason is that there is no fixed standard for creating a mana core. It changes depending on the materials, the technique, and the mana source of the creator. He glanced at Yeon Seonha standing beside him and continued, Therefore, all of you will start with the charging type first. Suddenly, his assistant's hand began to clench and tense up. It emitted a red mana. A stream of red mana began to appear in the classroom. Fire-based mana is inherently explosive, making it difficult to use as residual mana. He created two streams of red mana that met in an arc. However, if you can restrain that nature, it will reveal an excellent storage capacity. Christova continued his explanation following the simulation created by Yeon Seonha. A prime example is the technique my assistant is demonstrating right now. It is the Spear of the Lingering Flame Wheels. Han froze, completely stunned by the demonstration. To be able to control fire-based mana to that extent, the student sitting next to him was just as astonished. Even controlling a single forge is already too much for me. Christova stood on the podium. He held up a device in his hand. Since we are fortunate enough to have such a talented assistant, we must make good use of this opportunity. Please submit your assignments before next Thursday. The requirements were written clearly on the whiteboard. Topic: charging type, fire-based residual mana in the form of a fire wheel. He continued with a thorough reminder, you can create anything you like as long as you stick to this theme. Christova sat in his small vehicle looking excited as he twirled his cane continuously. Now let's move quickly to the refinement room. Oh, that's right. Don't forget to change into your work clothes. After he left, only Yeon Seonha remained. The other students suddenly stood up. This was their chance. Han and a few others shared the same thought, a golden opportunity to talk to their senior, Yeon Seonha. He looked excited as he reached out his hand to speak. Hello, senior. He appeared very polite and was about to introduce himself. I'm Han. Before he could finish, a dark aura radiated from around Yeon Seonha. Get lost. Han didn't dare to linger any longer and left dejected. Yes. The atmosphere in the class suddenly turned somber. Yeon Seonha stood still in one place with a cold expression, and his eyes closed. Then those sharp eyes suddenly snapped open. He glanced in one direction. As Sehun was nonchalantly preparing to leave the classroom, not paying any mind, Yeon Seonha spoke up. Lee Sehun, stop for a moment. Stop. What exactly do you know about me? The body of a sturdy, well-built man radiated a swirling red mana. I heard that the mastery of the Spear of the Lingering Flame Wheels is determined by the number of fire wheels. Leon, the current master of the Blazing Fire sect, and an A-rank hero, has reached 8 wheels. Sehun walked more slowly toward the door and gave him an answer. Since the 3 wheels you just made were so effortless, if you were to do it properly, you could definitely maintain 6 of them at once. Yeon Seonha quickly followed after him, calling out as he went. Wait a minute. So what? Sehun suddenly spoke, causing him to freeze. He stopped in his tracks. You've reached the 7th wheel before, haven't you? He hesitantly put his hands in his pockets, feeling exposed. But one day, you won't be able to hold on to it anymore. Yoon Seha, standing behind him, trembled with anger as he watched his retreating back. How could he know that? I haven't even reported it to my master yet. His face turned ice cold, and the words that left his lips were just as frigid. You see, I have some talent for controlling fire, but when I watched the flames you wield, I felt that something was very strange. You can't detonate the residual energy completely, or rather you're letting it scatter chaotically. Yoon Se-ha moved closer and asked him directly, "Do you know the reason why?" His face went blank, his eyes widening when he heard that. "I have a few theories." But the next words out of his mouth shattered his hopes. "But I see no reason to tell you." Yoon Se-ha, bewildered, exclaimed, "What?" Standing behind him, he clenched his arm at his side. "State your demands." Sehun didn't hesitate, holding up one index finger. "First, you will pay a worthy price for all my advice and help." A second finger rose on his hand. "Second, when faced with a difficult decision, you are required to consult with me." As soon as Sehun finished speaking, he began to walk away. "Let me know your decision before we reach the refining room." Yoon Se-ha, standing behind him, answered immediately without any hesitation or further thought. "I agree." His voice was serious as he added a condition. "If you can prove it." The scene changes to another place. Afternoon at a forge in the area. Several people in identical uniforms are working. The scene changes to another place. Afternoon at a forge in the area. Several people in identical uniforms are working. Sehun is focused on placing an object into the hot furnace. Is he crafting without even drawing a sketch? Does he mean he doesn't need to test it first? The selected stones are placed in the smelting furnace. Fire elemental ore and dark elemental ore mixed at a 7-to-3 ratio. Two people approached his diligent back and began whispering. If he just shoves it all in recklessly, what if all the elemental mana just vanishes? Why is the department's valedictorian doing something so crazy? His gaze didn't waver, focused only on calculating the rising temperature until the mana attribute began to leak out. Sehun quickly took off his glove. He plunged his bare hand directly into the fire, simultaneously controlling the flames with his mana to hold on to that attribute. That's the heat substitution technique. Richardova broke into a cold sweat while watching from the side. He's performing heat substitution this early, so this is why Professor Kim In-cheon accepted the public auction application. A smirk appeared at the corner of Sehun's lips. To the average person, it looked like a normal heat substitution, but to Yoon Se-ha, an entirely different scene was unfolding. At another time, he was silently watching with wide eyes. Observe the black shoes carefully as they touch the pedal. He presses the tip of his shoe down. A burst of red fire mana mixed with a little black erupts. The radiating fire elemental mana is drawn inward while the deeply burrowing dark elemental mana is pushed outward. In this way, the balance between the two opposing streams of mana is maintained, creating a perfect circle. Yoon Se-ha stood with his arms crossed, seemingly focused on observing, yet feeling a sense of disappointment. Is that all there is to it? The pupils in Sehun's eyes spun like a wheel of fire. My second mana attribute, which was forbidden, is believed to be hindering the scorching fire wheel's remnant flame. Yoon Se-ha still looked confused. His eyes were wide as he raised a hand to scratch his head. If I use it this way, I drop to the level of the fifth wheel. Sehun was startled to hear that. What Yoon Se-ha performed 5 wheel rotations right before his eyes and explained. I succeeded in perfecting the black fire wheel, but I don't have enough strength to maintain 6 of them. Sehun still had to assert, even so, the black fire wheel is stronger than 7 regular fire wheels. He looked a bit troubled, shutting his eyes tightly before turning away sharply. The Hua Moon periodically sends instructors to test the skills of successors active in the field. A giant black dark circle is created for the fire mana to pass through, and if anyone drops below the 6th wheel, they will be stripped of their successor position. Sehun nonchalantly offered a simple solution. Then just do it the old way this one time. Yoon Se-ha, dejected, created a small circle in his palm. That won't work either. The black mana is released so forcefully. My dark elemental mana after the fire wheel is now uncontrollable. Sehun was also getting a headache, pinching the bridge of his nose. When is that instructor coming? Se-ha had an immediate answer for him. Tomorrow. He put a hand to his chin, his eyes half-lidded as he looked away, thinking. He said losing the successor position means immediate expulsion, a method that can work in just one day. Suddenly, he placed a firm hand on Yoon Se-ha's shoulder. Hey, Sehun looked excited as he asked a question right then. If your position as successor is secured, can you do something for me? He replied seriously and concisely, I can. His gaze turned serious again. Good. Sehun smiled and took out a red and black stone. Highest quality, high-grade red resonance. Changha, ion-bonded black stone. An ore where fire and dark attribute mana coexist. The wavelength created by these two attributes will resonate with one's inner power. First, we'll change your weapon, Seong-ha. After that, he led him to what looked like a high-class room. This was Aqua University's private training room. Only those ranked in the top 100 of the dojo or the top 30 of their departments were allowed to use it. Stepping inside, Sehun could only sigh and say, "What a show-off." He tapped on the blue screen. "You can change the interface here too, right? I'll just make a few adjustments." The two of them stood still as they watched the interface change before their eyes. Sehun saw it pointed and teased Seong-ha. "The Hwa sect, you miss home that much?" He explained very calmly. "My master sent it to me, so I only use it occasionally." Sehun took out the black stone in his hand, looked at it, and said excitedly, "Well then, shall we start crafting the training equipment?" With just a gentle flick, the black stone split cleanly in two. Highest quality, high-grade, red resonance ion-bonded black stone. An ore where fire and dark attribute mana coexist. The wavelength created by these two attributes will resonate with one's internal mana. A long, sharp weapon was just crafted. "It's done." Seong-ha took the two spears in his hands. He looked at them with some concern. Holding one spear was already awkward, and now he had to handle two. Sehun, however, appeared very calm. "This is more suitable for controlling two types of attribute mana." Sehun stood opposite him, pointing to give him instructions. "From now on, create a fire wheel with your left hand and release dark attribute mana with your right." After hearing this, he was a little surprised. "Just release it," Sehun confirmed. "That's right." Seong-ha closed his eyes to calm himself. His gaze became sharp. He held the spears one in front and one behind and spun them once. Seong-ha suddenly had to stop when he realized mana was being emitted from the spear. He didn't understand and raised the spear, staring at it. "What was that just now?" Sehun calmly pointed at it and explained to him, "You unintentionally let your dark attribute mana overflow to your left hand." He felt the mana radiating from the spear. It's a natural phenomenon for multiple types of attribute mana to mix and escape. But in your case, it's so chaotic that they're suppressing each other. It's probably because you've only been suppressing your dark attribute mana all this time. Sehun attached a bracelet to his wrist. If you can get used to managing both types of mana at the same time, you'll reach the sixth wheel very quickly. Wear this while you practice too. Seong-ha looked at the bracelet on his wrist and smiled. "You've got some nice gear, huh?" After that, he continuously practiced with the spears in all sorts of poses. 3 hours of training had passed. Sehun stood outside, observing with a satisfied smile at his progress. He adapts so fast. Could it be because this training method was created by his own future self? He could feel it through every cell in his body. With the mana surrounding him, let's see just how talented this past version of you is. Breathing rhythm muscle movements, shifts in center of gravity. The wavelength of mana flowed throughout his body and was released at the tip of the spear. Seong-ha noticed his gaze and asked curiously, "What are you staring at?" Sehun rested his chin on his hands, looking very innocent. "What do you think? I'm just gathering data." He was taking a short break, wiping his cheek with his hand when he suddenly froze. "I need it to craft the weapon you'll be using," Sehun said very naturally from his chair. "I'm making this one for a class assignment, so don't get your hopes up." Seong-ha turned his face away. Who would get their hopes up for a weapon made by a freshman anyway? Sehun wouldn't sit still and glanced away. "By the way, Seong-ha," he swung the two spears in his hands down from above in a flat arc. "Is there any reason you absolutely have to hold on to the position of successor?" Without turning his face, he gave a short answer. "Master wants me to become the sect leader." He stood there, letting the two spears hang loosely, his voice just as cold. "So as his disciple, I am simply following his will." The one who adopted the orphan Eon Seong-ha and raised him was the S-rank hero and the first leader of the Hwa sect. On the picture hanging on the wall, the face and name of that person were clearly recorded. Jin Hyun. As a child, he sat next to Seong-ha, patting his head and guiding him. Although he had lost his power after retiring due to injury as a teacher, and as a father, he must still have an absolute influence on this guy. Sehun put a hand to his face, closed his eyes, and recalled the moment the three of them met. "Let's all get along, okay? Bond level 3. "Yes." Seong-ha glanced sideways. "Why are you helping me?" His brows furrowed, and his eyes closed tightly as he thought back. It was a bleak, desolate place that stretched from the forest to the city. The 6 great demonic realms, places that had been swallowed by the swamp of chaos, now teeming with demonic beasts. Sehun sat with his legs hanging off the side of the chair and turned towards him. I plan on infiltrating all of those demonic realms. To do that, I need people to protect me, and I need materials to craft weapons for those people. He didn't hesitate to make a very ambitious gesture with his hand. If you're the next leader of the Hua sect, your skills and financial situation should be quite decent. Right, seeing that gesture, he was at a loss for words. So pragmatic. Sehun's expression turned serious, his brow furrowed. Of course. We haven't known each other long, so why would I do charity work for you? What Xiongha tapped his back with his spear. Are you saying that if I want your help, I have to pay a worthy price for it? His eyes widened as he aimed a spear at him, his gaze piercing. Help me become the leader of the Hua sect. When that happens, I will follow you into those 6 great demonic realms. A past memory suddenly resurfaced, the words familiar coming from Xiongha's own mouth. Craft a weapon for me, and I will eliminate the demon gods for you. A smile spread across Sehun's lips. All right. He produced a brand new black stone in his fingers. You won't regret this, will you? The black stone pulsed with intense demonic energy. Now, whether you like it or not, I'm making you the sect leader. The Red Resonance Blackstone connection seal is activated. In the communal training hall on Flavium's first floor, Hyun-un appeared formally with his attendants. It had been a while. Young master, I am Gang Hyun-un, a 7-ring instructor of the Hua sect. Xiongha noticed the 3 people standing behind him. Who are they? Hyun-un gestured towards them. They are all disciples personally selected by the sect leader. He has tasked me with broadening their horizons through a practice match between you and me, young master. He deliberately covered his mouth and chuckled as he spoke. Because you, young master, are the most talented person after the designated successor. But Xiongha was not amused. He retorted, Hey, Instructor Hyun-un. His gaze was ice-cold, pinning the man in place. The next successor to the sect leader has not been decided yet. Watch your words. Hyun-un's smile remained unabashed. My sincerest apologies. It seems I was momentarily confused. Hyun-un extended his arm, getting down to business. Well then, shall we begin the proficiency test? Xiongha refused outright. No, a title appeared in a swirl of energy. I request to take the promotion test for the 7th ring. Hyun-un gave him a look of contempt. A simpleton who only knows how to train, and he dares to dream of the sect leader's position. He then recalled the words of his patron, that arrogant brat. If Xiongha wants to challenge the 7-ring level, crush him completely. No matter what happens, I'll smooth things over. Standing opposite him, Hyun-un began a long-winded explanation. From the 7th ring and above, the test includes direct combat with an instructor. You should also consider Grand Elder Ion Jin-hyun of the main sect. For you, this is still far too soon. Young master? Xiongha stood there with his arms crossed, paying him no mind. You talk too much. Xiongha dared to provoke him further. Or are you just afraid of losing your title as an instructor? Hearing this, Hyun-un flew into a rage. Someone bring me my spear now. This 7-ring promotion test will be a domain battle, he announced, now holding his spear upright. The domain battle format is actually quite simple. It's a pure contest of power. Whichever side has the stronger Hwa-Yun wins. The condition for promotion is that you must win, or at the very least, fight to a draw. Sehun watched with sharp eyes as Xiongha held 2 spears in his hands. Then the call came. All right, let's begin. Upon seeing his weapons, Hyun-un covered his mouth and sneered confidently. Dual spears. How unrefined. Xiongha paid him no mind. With a sharp glare, he swung his 2 spears and charged forward, unleashing intense fire magic. Hyun-un stood his ground, chiding, Have you forgotten the sect's teachings to restrain your mana and your own dark attribute? Such chaotic flames will never be recognized as a Hwa-Yun. Xiongha smirked, having already created rings of fire spinning around him. Let's see how this turns out. And when we really make it explode... Hyun-un appeared very confident, swinging his spear in a simple arc behind him. You will definitely regret this. He got into a serious stance, spinning out rings of fire. A blinding light erupted as the fire attribute mixed with the dark, obscuring everything from view. Suddenly, Hyun-un's eyes widened in shock. The shape of a black dragon pierced through the rings of fire, devouring them. What in the world is going on? My Hwa-Yun is being swallowed. No, it's being completely torn to shreds. His enraged eyes were still wide with shock when a few seconds later the spear in his hands shattered into 3 pieces. Hyun-un collapsed to his knees before his shattered weapon. Xiongha stood over his defeated form, holding his 2 spears arrogantly. You said they were unrefined. Watching from behind, Sehun felt it was a bit of a waste. So what happens next? What a waste of excellent materials. Seongha, still holding his 2 spears, turned to talk to him. Once the upcoming promotion ceremony is held, I will be officially recognized as an instructor of the Hwa sect and as a legitimate successor. Sehun lowered his head, curious. How will you take the sect leader's seat? Standing beside him, Seongha glanced over. 2 conditions must be met. First, I have to reach the 8th ring. Second, I need to get the approval of the majority of the instructors. Sehun crouched down, picking up the fragments of the broken spear. Even if you reach the 8th ring, do you think you can make them agree? Seongha stated with conviction, I can win their approval through combat, so that's not an issue. However, it won't be a domain battle that time, so it won't be as easy as it was today. Sehun stood up, putting his hands in his pockets. In that case, it probably won't take too long. Beside him, Seongha gripped his spear, his expression serious. You make it sound so easy. Sehun just replied nonchalantly, I'm only saying, and that it seems entirely possible. Just look at what happened today. Now you'd better start worrying about how you're going to pay the price for this. Hyo-ha closed his eyes, looking calm. The corner of his mouth lifted as if he could handle anything. Just let me know what you need to settle this debt. Whether it's cash or materials, I'll provide everything within my power. His voice dropped to a lower, more serious tone. Furthermore, I have another item I'd like to commission from you. Sehun was a little surprised, glancing over at him. A new order. This soon? Suddenly, Hyo-ha tightened his grip on the weapon in his hand. These aren't bad quality-wise, but I just borrowed one to turn in for class. A calculated smile spread across his face. If he can create these in just a few short hours, I'm really curious. I wonder what the next spear he forges will be like. Hyo-ha slammed his fist onto Sehun's shoulder. Make me a weapon that's easier to use. Sehun reluctantly started walking alongside him. Put that spear down. You almost stabbed us with that thing. What did you just say? The bond index with the target Ion Hyo-ha has increased to level 2. As the bond level increases, the relationship between the 2 parties will become stronger. The current connection with the target Ion Hyo-ha is transactional. Each time a transaction with the target is completed, a bonding stone will be formed. The crystallization speed of the bonding stone will increase. While a transaction is in progress, current number of stones, 0. The scene changes to a crowded place with an audience and light shining on something on stage, at the auction house. The host looked very enthusiastic, gesturing with his hands. Thank you all for patiently waiting. The second-year cultivation department's periodic auction is now officially open. Sehun appeared here in an audience seat. I didn't think this many people usually attended. Erica, sitting next to him, noticed his outfit. Did you change your style? He just crossed his arms, his eyes scanning the room. Professor Inno reminded me that outward appearance is also important, and because of that he thought more cautiously. It seems the title of top student of the department really is something else. In-cheon appeared calmly under the lights on stage. It'll be difficult to openly control someone who's the center of everyone's attention. Sehun sat with his arms crossed, a sly smile on his face as he observed. I'm quite curious about Michael's plan to take over the refining department. Today's theme is iron swords. There are a total of 36 products submitted, and we will have an additional, a special quality inspection phase. Following the host's words, a white cloth was brought out onto the stage. This cloth is gam woven from the molten fur of the S-Rank beast, the white tiger. It has the softness of fabric, but is as durable as metal, while also resisting slashing attacks. Another man assisting on stage seriously struck the cloth hard with something. Thanks to that characteristic, a loud sound tore through the room. The host pointed to the demonstration on the floor. As you can see, in order to increase killing power, we can easily detect items that have had their durability reduced in this auction. We will use Giam to eliminate such defective items. A sword was the first item handed over. And now the first sword to be introduced is the Lam Gak sword from student Joseph. Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. Oh, that one looks interesting. It seems they've prepared everything very thoroughly. Erica glanced at Sehun beside her. Do you know why they're doing this? He analyzed a white tiger with blue pupils. Most people only know that a white tiger's body is very tough, but its abilities are actually a bit more complex. Parts of its fur, flesh, and bones all have completely different properties. Its fur in particular has the ability to replicate the sharpness of any metal weapon it touches. So no matter how good the weapon is, the fur will gradually wear down its durability. Erica placed a hand on her chin, thinking seriously for a moment. If that's the case, then won't the white light longsword be at a disadvantage? Because swords that prioritize sharpness usually have very low durability. Sehun propped his chin on his hand, a look of great anticipation on his face. That's exactly right. This is clearly a blatant trap aimed at me and Professor Kim In-cheon. But if the sword breaks here, my supervising professor's reputation will also be severely damaged. That will only happen if it wasn't crafted carefully, of course. On the stage, the host struck the auction gavel. The 25th sword has been sold for 4 million. The final sword was brought out and the host began the introduction. And now, finally, is sword number 36, from the first-year top student of the refining department, Lee Sehun. The quality inspection for the white light longsword will now begin